Hello everyone. Tonight we're going to slip quietly into the world of kings and battles, where destinies cross blades and blood remembers names long after voices fade. The moon outside might be bright tonight, but in the hush of your room, the flicker of your lamp throws just enough shadow to remind you that history was never made in daylight alone. You're perched on the edge of your bed, pulling your covers tight around your shoulders, because what we're about to see isn't the story of a kingdom's glory, it's the final dawn before the storm. Imagine the warm hush of a summer night, the sweet tang of wood smoke in the air, and the distant hoot of an owl echoing down the centuries in the castle's high towers. A lone candle flickers in a window. The king's bedchamber is silent, but for the slow creak of old floorboards under his slippers. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from and what time it is where you are. Drop it in the comments below. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get down to business tonight. You've been dragging your feet through the thick carpeted halls of the ancient keep. The air smells faintly of lavender and wood polish, and every window you pass frames a velvet blue sky still waiting for dawn. The king stands at the window, silhouetted by the pale glimmer of stars, his broad shoulders cloaked in a heavy robe of deep crimson. He looks tired. There's something in the curve of his shoulders that speaks of years spent in council, of battles fought not just with swords, but with the slow erosion of compromise. You pause at the door, your hand resting on the cold brass handle, and watch him for a moment. He raises a hand to the glass, fingers tracing the foggy outline of a cloud. In the distance, the forest lies in a dark hutch, the trees as silent as a prayer. He turns, his face a map of lines and soft shadows. His voice is barely above a whisper when he speaks, the soft cadence of a man who knows his words are not meant to be heard by many tonight. The world is quiet before it's loud. He murmurs, there's always that one breath, that one heartbeat, where you think maybe, just maybe, this won't end in blood. You swallow hard. The crackle of the hearth behind you, your only answer. He reaches for a thick woolen cloak draped over a nearby chair and pulls it round his shoulders. The weight of it makes him seem smaller somehow, as if the burden of rule has finally bent his proud spine. Outside, the last star winks out in the paling sky, and you hear the faint rustle of footsteps in the corridor beyond. The king turns back to the window one last time, his eyes sweeping the horizon as if he can already see the shape of the battle that waits for him. It's time, he says softly, and you feel the weight of those two words settle into your bones. The corridor beyond is lined with flickering torches, each flame licking the stone walls with golden tongues. The air smells of iron and pine resin, a smell that makes your heart beat just a little faster. You walk in step with the king as he makes his way to the chapel, each footstep a soft echo in the vast hush of the morning. In the chapel, a single candle burns on the altar. The king kneels, his head bowed, and you can almost taste the salt of his quiet prayers. His fingers tremble for just a moment as he touches the cold stone of the altar, and then they're steady again. The calm of a man who has seen enough battles to know that fear is only as real as you let it be. The silence stretches, wrapping round you like a warm blanket. You almost don't notice the soft footsteps behind you until the prince slips into the chapel, his hair tousled from sleep, his eyes bright with the reckless certainty of youth. He looks so young in the half-light, his shoulders still to narrow for the armor he will soon wear. The king rises slowly, his joints creaking just a little as he straightens. He looks at his son, and for a moment there's a softness in his eyes that no battlefield will ever erase. Are you ready? The king asks. The prince grins, a lopsided smile that makes him look like the boy he still is. Ready enough, he says. His voice is steady, but his fingers fidget with the leather strap of his sword belt. You stand there, caught between them. feeling the electric crackle of a moment that will never come again. Outside the chapel, the sky is beginning to pale to the color of cold milk, and the first birds are starting to sing. You're aware of every detail: the cold stone under your feet, the scent of beeswax candles, the way the king's breath clouds in the chill air. You wonder if he's thinking of the weight of his crown, all the weight of the lives he carries on his shoulders. For just a moment, the king closes his eyes, and you wonder if he sees the faces of all the men he has lost in the wars of his youth. Then he opens them again, and they are clear and sharp, the eyes of a man who knows his duty. He takes his son's shoulder in a firm grip, and for a heartbeat the two of them stand there, silent, bound by blood and by fate. Then he turns and walks out of the chapel, his cloak swirling round his ankles, the prince following in his wake. You follow, too, because there is nothing else to do but bear witness to the final day of peace. The courtyard is alive with the clatter of horses and the low murmur of men's voices. The sky is lightening to a pale gold, the promise of a day that will end in sorrow. You take a deep breath, the cold air sharp in your lungs, and feel the world shift under your feet. This is the last calm breath before the storm. You're still walking beside the king, the stone of the courtyard underfoot cold and unyielding. The air is thick with the scent of horses and the tang of metal-oiled leather, sweat, the restless whinnying of mounts who know the morning smells different today. As the sun's first rays crawl over the battlements, you can almost hear the whisper of history itself, the soft voice of all the battles that have come before. A figure leans against the old well, his face half hidden under the shadow of a dented helmet. He straightens as the king approaches, his expression wary but warm. This is Sir Carden, one of the king's oldest friends, a man whose laughter usually booms louder than the church bells at festival time. But this morning, his smile is tight, his eyes dark and searching. "You will be wanting a word before we go," he says, his voice low and gruff, as if he's trying not to let his worries slip through. The king clasps his shoulder. "We'll need all the words we can get," he says, his fingers tighten, and you can almost feel the weight of that touch a silent command, a shared memory of days when the two of them were young and foolish and sure the world would never end. You catch a glimpse of the prince over the king's shoulder. He's turned away, staring off into the woods beyond the gates, as if the quiet green of the trees can offer some promise of safety. But even he seems to know there's no such promise left today. There's a hush that falls as the king's squire arrives, the young man's breath steaming in the chill air. He carries the king's sword, wrapped in a cloth as red as fresh blood. The king takes it without a word, the weight of the steel settling into his palm like a memory. He tests the blade's edge with his thumb, a quick flick that leaves a pale line of red. His face doesn't even flicker. You watch him slide the sword into its scabbard, the leather creaking softly. The prince steps forward, his own sword drawn already, the light catching on the bright steel. "Father," he says, his voice still loud in the hushed courtyard. "They say the enemy is close." "How close?" The king cuts him off with a look, close enough to smell the fear on the wind. He says, his voice is calm, almost gentle, close enough that we'll hear the clash of their banners before the hour is out. You shiver at that. The air itself seems to grow colder, and the distant shapes of the forest press in closer. It's as if the world is holding its breath, waiting for the first drop of blood to fall. A shout comes from the gates, a rider approaching fast. You turn, heart stuttering in your chest, as the gates swing open and a young messenger rides through, his face white as bone. He slides off his horse and runs to the king, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "My lord," he says, the words tumbling out. "Scots say the enemy camps at the river ford. Their banners fly high, and they've brought twice the men we thought." The prince's eyes flash with something that might be excitement. Then we'll strike first, he says, the steel in his voice matching the steel in his hand. But the king's face doesn't change. We'll strike, he says, but not first. Not like a boy chasing a dream of glory. You feel the weight of those words settle into your bones. The prince flushes, his jaw tight, for a moment. You think he might argue, but he doesn't. He turns away instead, his sword still clenched tight. The king glances at you, as if he knows you're listening too closely. His eyes are tired, but there's a glint there like the last star before dawn, refusing to fade. Every battle begins long before the swords, he says softly, almost to himself. It begins in the whispers and the silences, in the words we dare not speak out loud. The prince lifts his head at that, and you see the flicker of doubt there. He opens his mouth to speak, but the king turns and strides away, his cloak trailing like a shadow. You follow. You always follow. The sun has risen fully now, the light harsh and unforgiving. The king's men are gathering, the clink of armor and the murmur of quiet prayers filling the air. You catch snippets of conversations, jokes about the cook's terrible stew, boasts about who will bring down the first foe. But beneath it all is the hush of dread, the slow drumbeat of fear that thrums in your chest like a second heartbeat. A knight nearby snorts as he tightens the straps on his breastplate. If we're to meet death today, he says, let it be in the mud with a belly full of laughter. He winks at you, the corners of his eyes crinkling, and you almost smile despite yourself. The king mounts his horse with the ease of a man who has done this too many times to count. The prince swings up beside him, his youthful energy a sharp contrast to his father's measured calm. The two of them look out over their men, and for a moment they are just father and son, standing on the edge of the world. The gates creak open with a groan that sounds like an old man's sigh. The road beyond stretches out in a straight line, the forest crowding close on either side. The birds have gone silent, as if even they know this day will be written in blood. The king raises his hand, and the column begins to move. You ride with them. The rhythm of hoof beats a steady drum in your ears. The trees blur past, the air sharp and cold, and you feel the weight of the day pressing down, and in the quiet spaces between the clank of armor and the hiss of breath, you hear it soft, distant. But there, the clash of banners, the cry of men. The battle waits, patient and hungry. You keep pace with the king as the column wins its way along the ancient road. The cobblestones worn smooth by centuries of iron-shod hooves and the passage of countless armies. There's a low mist curling along the ground, ghostly tendrils of white that seem to grasp at the horses' legs as they move. A final warning from the earth itself. The prince rides just ahead, his shoulders squared, the plume on his helmet swaying with every movement. He leans forward in his saddle, eager, almost impatient, and you can't help but remember how he left in the courtyard only hours ago. So sure of the day's promise. Beside him, Sir Khan hums under his breath, an old drinking song that seems out of place in the hutch, a cup for the road, he says when he catches your glance. His grin croaked, and a song for the end. His voice drops to a low murmur. There's no sense in meeting fate without a tune in your head. The king rides in silence. His gaze never wavers from the path ahead. His jaw set like stone. You can see the way his hand rests on the hilt of his sword, his knuckles white where they grip the leather. The reins creak in his other hand, each movement measured, each breath slow and deep. The forest crowds close on either side, the scent of pine and cold earth filling your nose. Birds flit overhead, restless shadows darting through the grey sky. It's too quiet, the kind of quiet that comes before the world splits open dot as you ride. The king's voice drifts back to you, low and calm. This road was old when my grandfather first rode it, he says, and it will be old long enough till we're all gone. It remembers every footstep, every drop of blood, His eyes are far away, fixed on something only he can see. The prince shifts in his saddle, impatience radiating from every line of his body. Let the road remember us. Then, he says, his voice hard, let it remember what we did today. The king doesn't answer. His silence is an answer in itself. You pass a wayside shrine, a crumbling stone figure half swallowed by moss and ivy. Some farmer or passing pilgrim has left a little clay cup at its feet, filled with fresh milk, a small offering for the spirits of the road. The prince's horse shies away from it, as if even the animal can sense the weight of old gods and old ghosts. The road bends, and the first of the enemy's scouts come into view, thin figures on weary horses, watching from the tree line. They make no move to stop the king's advance. No challenge or cry of alarm, just silent shapes. There and gone again in the mist, Sir Khan lets out a soft chuckle. A quiet enemy, he says. The worst kind. The prince glances back, his jaw tight. They'll wish they'd spoken when we're through with them. Sir Khan says, his grin turning sad. Maybe they're thinking the same of us. The king says nothing, his eyes locked on the horizon. The column halts just before a rise in the road, the land falling away beyond in a shallow valley. You dismount with the rest, your feet sinking into the wet earth, the cold seeping up through your boots. The king stands for a moment, staring down at the enemy camp spread out below, a sprawl of tents and banners, the smoke of cook fires rising in thin grey threads. The prince steps up beside him, his breath quick and shallow. We can take them, he says. They're disorganized, still half asleep. Let me lead the charge. The king doesn't turn. No, his voice is soft, but it cuts through the cold air like a blade. We wait. We let them see us first. Let them feel the weight of what's coming. The prince's mouth tightens. Every moment we wait, they grow stronger. Every moment we wait, the king says, turning to look at his son, is a moment they remember who we are. That can break a man before a sword ever does. You feel the tension coil tight between them, an old wound that's never truly healed. The prince looks away, his fingers drumming restlessly on the pommel of his sword. But he doesn't argue further. Not here, not now. The king raises a hand, and the order passes down the line. Hold your ground. The soldiers shift, restless, the clink of armor and the mutter of prayers filling the air. You see the older knights checking their straps one last time. The younger ones glancing at the prince with eyes bright as coins. Sir Khan leans against a twisted oak, his breath a soft cloud in the chill. Reminds me of that summer in the south, he says, a grin flickering across his weathered face. Remember, we drank that sour wine and nearly lost the whole regiment in the river. The king almost smiles, and you feel the weight in the air is just a little. I remember, he says. It's a quiet moment, a stolen breath of warmth before the storm. But then the horns sound from the enemy camp, a deep, mournful blur that seems to shake the trees themselves. The soldiers round you stiffen, hands tightening on spear shafts, eyes going wide. The king closes his eyes for a single heartbeat. When he opens them again, they're clear and cold as winter sky. Mount up, he says. You feel the world tighten round you as the men obey, the clatter of hoof and harness loud in the hush morning. The king swings back into his saddle, his cloak snapping in the breeze like a banner of blood. The prince is already mounted, his face pale but his eyes alight. The spark of battle hunger there for anyone to see. You take a deep breath, the taste of the cold air sharp and metallic on your tongue. This is it, the last breath before the clash, the last heartbeat before the world changes. The king raises his sword in a silent salute to the waiting enemy. The prince mirrors the gesture, his sword catching the first pale light of dawn. And then the horns sound again, and the world breaks open. The battle begins in a thunder of hooves and the crack of wooden shields colliding. You're swept up in the surge. The press of bodies and the hot, wet scent of sweat and fear. The king rides at the front, his cloak billowing out behind him, the bright steel of his sword glinting in the dawnlight. Beside him, the prince's laughter rings out, bright and sharp. The sound of a boy who believes the world can be taken in one furious rush that your horse shies at the first clash. The ground underfoot slick with churned mud. You grip the reins tighter, the leather cutting into your palms, and lean forward into the charge. The enemy's line is closer now, the faces of their front ranks pale and tense. Their own battle cries rising to meet yours. The air itself seems to split open as the two forces collide. You see the king's sword rise and fall, each stroke precise and deadly. The quiet calm of a man who has fought too many battles to waste breath on fear. The prince fights like a flame, each movement quick and hungry, his eyes bright with the thrill of it. The clang of metal and the sharp tang of blood fill your senses. The world a blur of color and noise. A man in enemy colors lunges at you, his spear catching on your shield. You shove it aside, the jolt rattling up your arm. Drive your own blade forward. He falls with a grunt, the life leaving his eyes in a slow, puzzled blink. Sir Cardan rides past you, his laughter loud even here. In the thick of it, hold fast, he shouts, his blade cutting down an enemy soldier with a single swing. Hold fast, you bastards, and sing if you must. For a moment, it almost feels like you could win like the weight of history, and the bright flash of steel could bend the world to your will. But then the enemy's reserves crash into your flank, fresh troops with bright eyes and steadier hands. The line buckles, the clash of shields like the crack of thunder. You see the king glance back at his son, the barest flicker of way there. The prince doesn't see it he's to court in the rush of the fight. 'Tis certain that his youth and his fury are enough to carry the day. A banner falls nearby, trampled under the hooves of panicked horses. You hear the muffled curses of the men round you, the shouted commands that are swallowed up by the chaos. The king fights his way to the prince's side, his blade cutting a clear path. Stay close, he says, his voice calm even here. In the eye of the storm, the prince nods, though you can see the frustration in the tight set of his jaw. You feel the battle shift round you, the push and pull of it like a tide. The ground is slick with blood now, and the air is thick with the cobry taste of it. Your breath comes in ragged gasps, each one a struggle. The king's horse rears, its hooves flashing as it strikes down an enemy soldier. The prince is there, his sword flashing, his shield ablur. For a moment, the two of them stand together, back to back, the old and the young. The past and the future dot, and then you see it a figure in enemy colors, moving fast and low, his spear aimed at the king's back. You open your mouth to shout a warning, but the clash of steel and the roar of voices swallow your cry. The prince sees it too, his eyes widening. He turns, his own blade already in motion. But it's too late, the spear strikes true, slipping under the king's arm and driving deep. The king's horse screams, rearing in panic. The king sways in the saddle, his face going pale, his sword slipping from his grasp. The prince lets out a cry, a roar, ragged sound that cuts through the din of the battle. You watch as the king slides from his horse, the fall slow and terrible, the world seeming to pause round him. He hits the ground hard, the breath knocked from his lungs in a soft gasp you can almost hear. The prince is there in an instant, dropping to his knees beside his father, his hands shaking as he fumbles at the wound. "Father," he says, his voice breaking. "Father." No. The king's hand comes up, clumsy and weak, to cup his son's cheek. His lips move, but the words are lost in the noise of the battle. You feel something inside you break then. The sharp, cold snap of it like the shattering of glass. Round you, the battle rages on. But for a moment, all you can hear is the prince's soft, desperate murmur. Sir Cardan fights his way to your side. his face white. "We have to pull back," he shouts, his voice hoarse. "The king is down if we stay. We're lost." The prince doesn't move. He cradles his father's head in his lap, his tears cutting clean tracks through the grime on his face. The king's eyes flutter open for a moment, and then close again. His breath a soft rattle. Historians still debate whether the king's death was the turning point of the battle, whether his loss broke the men's spirits, or whether they fought all the harder for it in the end. It doesn't matter. You see the line falter. The enemy pressing forward with renewed fury. Sir Carden grabs your arm, his fingers bruising. "We have to go," he says, and you know he's right. But even as you turn to flee, you catch one last glimpse of the prince, still kneeling in the mud beside his father, his sword forgotten at his side. The battle surges round him, the clash of steel and the screams of the dying. But he doesn't move, his face turned up to the sky as if searching for some answer in the cold, and feeling clouds, and in that moment, you understand this is the end of one story and the beginning of another. The king and his son, fallen on the same day, their blood soaking the earth that will remember them long after the rest of the world has forgotten. You're still gasping for breath, the cold air burning your throat. As you pull your horse round and push through the chaos of the retreat, Sir Carden rides close, his face grim beneath his dented helm, and for a moment, you remember that night by the river how he'd laughed and called the moon a pale-faced widow. Now, there's no laughter left in him. The prince is gone, lost somewhere in the churn of men and dying horses. The king lies still in the mud, his lifeblood soaking into the earth. Round you, the line buckles. A desperate tangle of men trying to flee the press of enemy spears. The enemy surges forward, their battle cries bright and cold. You taste bile at the back of your throat, your hands numb on the reins. Hold together. Sir Carden shouts, his voice ragged. We can still get clear. You see a young squire no older than 16 pinned beneath a dead horse, his eyes wide with terror. He reaches for you as you pass, but there's nothing you can do. The weight of the world too heavy to lift in that moment. The road is a river of blood and broken armor. The smell of iron and churned earth filling your nose. The mist hangs thick round you, the shapes of men flickering in and out of sight like wraiths. You think of the king's quiet voice, how he said the road remembers, and you wonder what it will remember of this day. Sir Carden pulls ahead, his blade swinging in wide. Desperate ox, we are almost to the rise, he shouts. Get to the rise and we'll make a stand. You follow him up the slope, the weight of your armor dragging at your shoulders. Your legs ache with every step, but you push on. The memory of the king's last breath still hot in your mind. At the crest of the hill, you turn back to look. The valley below is a chaos of banners and bodies. The enemy pressing forward in a dark tide, and there, at the edge of it, you see the prince. He's on his knees, his sword clutched in both hands, the blade buried in the muddy earth. His head is bowed, the plume on his helmet drooping like a withered flower. Round him, the enemy hesitates, as if even they can feel the weight of what's been lost. You feel your throat tighten, the ache of it like a stone. He's done, Sir Carden says, his voice slow. He won't leave his father's side. For a moment, you think of riding down to him, of dragging him away from that cold place. But you know there's no pulling him back from this. Some things can't be undone. Sir Carden's hand is on your shoulder, his grip firm. Come on, he says. We can still save the others. You turn away. The image of the prince burned into your mind. The retreat is a desperate thing. Men slipping in the mud. The enemy close at their heels. You hear the cry of a war horn, the deep, mournful note carrying through the mist, and you wonder if it's for the dead or for the living. At the edge of the woods, you find a moment's shelter, a stand of ancient oaks. Their gnarled branches a shield against the enemy's arrows. The men gather there, battered and bloodied, their faces pale beneath the grime. Sir Khan leans against a tree, his breath coming in harsh gasps. "We can't stay," he says. "They'll be on us in minutes." You nod. "Do you feel hollow inside?" The prince. "He's made his choice," Sir Khan says, his voice gentle. "We have to honor that, and we have to live." You hear the words, but they taste bitter on your tongue. You think of the king's quiet strength, the prince's bright fury, and how both of them lie broken now, their blood mixing in the cold earth. Historians still debate whether the prince's final stand was one of courage or one of despair, whether he fought on because he believed in the cause, or because he couldn't bear to live in a world without his father. In the end, it doesn't matter. The earth remembers, even if the scholars do not. The sun is rising now, pale and cold. The first light of dawn creeping through the trees. The men around you stir, their eyes turning to the east. A bird calls out, a thin, reedy cry that sounds too bright for this ruined place. Sir Khan straightens, his armor creaking. "We'll head for the river," he says. "There's a ford a few miles south. If we can reach it, we might yet live to tell the tale." You nod again, the ache in your chest deep and hollow. The men form up round you, their movements slow and weary. You see the haunted look in their eyes, the weight of everything they've seen. The first enemy scouts appear at the edge of the clearing, their horses picking carefully through the mud. You take a deep breath, the cold air sharp in your lungs, and tighten your grip on your sword. "Ready," Sir Khan says, his voice calm. "We move on my mark." You spare one last glance back at the valley, at the broken banners and the silent figure of the prince. You whisper a quiet prayer, though you're not sure who it's for. Then Sir Khan gives the order, and you turn your horse south, the trees swallowing you up as you ride. The road ahead is uncertain, the future a tangle of shadows and doubt. But for now, you're alive, and that will have to be enough. The forest closes in round you as you ride, the hush of leaves and the soft whisper of your horses, who's a stark contrast to the roar of the battlefield you've left behind. You're have-numb. The rhythm of the horse's movement and the steady rise and fall of your breath, the only things anchoring you to the moment. Sir Khan rides beside you, his face pale and set. He glances back now and then, his eyes scanning the woods for any sign of pursuit. You know he's thinking the same thing you are. How far behind is the enemy? And how much time do you have before they close the gap? The men are quiet, their heads bent, the weight of the day pressing down on them. You can see the toll it's taken in the slump of their shoulders and the hollow look in their eyes. But they're still moving, still alive. And that's no small thing. The trees here are ancient, their gnarled trunks twisting up into the grey morning sky. You remember hearing once, maybe from a drunken bard, maybe from the king himself, that these woods have stood since the world was young, that they've seen 1,000 battles, 1,000 kings rise and fall. It's a comforting thought, in a way, that the world endures, even when everything else seems to slip away. You catch sight of a small stream, its water clear and cold as it winds through the underbrush. The sound of it is soothing, a quiet music in the silence of the forest. For a moment, you let your horse drink, the cool water splashing up onto your hands and face. Sir Khan dismounts, stretching his legs and wincing at the stiffness in his back. "We'll rest here for a moment," he says. "Let the horses drink. Let the men catch their breath." You nod, sliding from the saddle. Your legs tremble as you stand, the exhaustion of the day catching up with you in a wave. You close your eyes, listening to the soft murmur of the stream and the gentle rustle of the trees. One of the younger soldiers, his face smudged with dirt and blood, slumps down beside you. "Do you think the prince is gone?" he asks, his voice small. You swallow hard. "I don't know," You say honestly, but I think he chose to stay. For his father? The boy nods, his shoulders sagging. I always thought he'd be the one to lead us. The prince, I mean, he was different. Different doesn't always mean strong. You say quietly, though you're not sure if you believe it. But he had the heart for it. Sir Khan's voice cuts through your thoughts. Mount up, he says, his tone gentle but firm. We can't linger. You swing back into the saddle, your muscles protesting. The forest seems to hold its breath round you, the stillness almost sacred. You wonder how many men have passed through these woods. How many have whispered prayers to the old trees as they fled from battles lost? Historians still debate whether the forest was truly neutral ground, whether the trees themselves offered sanctuary to the fleeing soldiers, or whether it was just the luck of the moment that let men slip away into the shadows. You like to think the forest remembers, even if the historians do not. The road is narrow here, winding and uneven, the branches overhead thick enough to block out the pale light of dawn. You keep your head low, the chill of the morning air cutting through the gaps in your armor. Sir Carden rides ahead, his eyes sharp. He's always been the sort to plan 3 steps ahead, the sort to weigh every choice against the cold calculus of survival. But even he looks tired now, his shoulders hunched, his mouth set in a hard line. You ride in silence for a while. The only sounds the soft clop of hooves and the occasional creak of leather. The world feels hushed. The chaos of the battle left behind in the very dot after a time. You reach a small clearing. The ground here is dry and firm. A good place to stop and catch your breath. Sir Carden raises a hand, and the men file around him, forming a loose circle. He dismounts, his sword still in hand. We'll rest here for a while, he says, but stay sharp. The enemy won't be far behind. You slide from your horse, the exhaustion in your bones like lead. The men drop to the ground, some of them closing their eyes for a moment's peace, others staring blankly into the trees. A light joke comes to mind, something about the forest's no vacancy sign or crocodile poops on screen, but you swallow it down. There's no room for humor here. Not today. Instead, you find a flat rock and sit, your sword across your knees. You think of the king, his quiet strength, his final breath. You think of the prince, the bright flash of his laughter and the way he fell to his knees beside his father. The forest seems to press in round you, the hush of it a bomb to your frayed nose. You let your head fall forward, your eyes closing. You're so tired in a way that seeps down to your bones. You're not sure how long you sit there, the weight of it all pressing down on you. But when Sir Carden's hand comes to rest on your shoulder, you open your eyes and nod. We ride for the river, he says softly, and whatever waits for us beyond it. You stand, your legs stiff, your breath a cloud in the cold air. Round you, the men stir, their movements slow but determined. The forest watches, silent and patient. As you mount up once more, the road ahead is long, and you know it won't be easy. But for now, you're still moving, and that's all that matters. You ride in a half-doze, your mind slipping in and out of memory, the road ahead blurring into the past. The forest round you is a tunnel of green and brown, the sunlight turning to a warm haze through the canopy overhead. Every hoofbeat echoes with the memory of the king's final breath, of the prince's silent vigil by his father's side. Sir Carden rides ahead, his back straight, his eyes scanning every shadow. You envy his focus, the way he can shut out the past and see only the path before him. You've never been so good at that, your mind always chasing after ghosts, the past clinging like birds to your cloak. The river is still a day's ride away, and you know the enemy won't let you reach it easily. The men around you are quiet, their voices low and wary. Even the horses seem to sense the weight of the moment, their ears flicking nervously at every rustle in the underbrush. A branch snaps somewhere off to your left. The sharp sound cutting through the hush of the forest. Sir Cardan holds up a hand, and the column slows, the men gripping their weapons tighter. You feel your own breath catch, your fingers tightening round the hilt of your sword. Nothing moves. The forest holds its breath, and then a figure steps out from the trees. He's an old man, his hair a tangle of white, his robe stained with mud and leaves. In one hand he holds a twisted staff, in the other a small bundle wrapped in cloth. His eyes are bright, the kind of bright that comes from seeing too much and surviving it all. "Who are you?" Sir Khan demands, his voice cold. The old man just smiles, a slow, cracked smile. "A friend, perhaps," he says, his voice soft as the wind through the leaves, or a ghost, depending on how you see it. Sir Cardan doesn't lower his sword, and you don't either. But there's something in the old man's eyes, a calm that's hard to ignore, a certainty that feels like it's wrapped in the forest's hush. "I've seen many men ride this road," the old man says, stepping closer. "Kings and fools, brave knights and cowards, and all of them thought they were the first to flee, the first to weep for what they'd lost." You swallow, your throat dry. "What do you want from us, old man?" He lifts the bundle in his hand, the cloth parting to reveal a small woodworn icon, a carving of a tree, its branches twisting up into the sky. "Nothing," he says, "only to remind you that the forest remembers, and so must you." Historians still debate whether this old man was a real figure or just a story whispered by desperate soldiers. Some say he was a hermit who'd lived in these woods for decades. Others claim he was a spirit sent to guide the lost. You are not sure it matters. In this moment, he feels real enough. Sir Khan's jaw tightens. "We have no time for riddles." The old man just smiles again, tucking the icon back into his robes. "Then ride on," he says. "But remember, no road is truly empty. The forest keeps its own counsel." He steps back into the shadows, vanishing as quickly as he appeared. The men around you exchange uneasy glances. But Sir Cardan just sets his jaw and nudges his horse forward. You follow, the memory of the old man's words clinging to you like the chill of the morning air. You wonder if he was right, if the forest really does remember, if it holds the echoes of every man who's passed this way. The day stretches on, the sun climbing higher, the heat of it turning the air thick and heavy. You pass an ancient standing stone, half buried in moss, the runes on its surface worn down to nothing. Sir Khan spares at a glance, but says nothing. You wonder what prayers were whispered here, what promises were made and broken in the hush of the forest dot by late afternoon. The trees begin to thin, the road opening up into rolling hills. You see the river in the distance, its silver ribbon winding through the valley like a promise of escape. But you know better than to trust in promises. You've seen too many broken today. The men stir at the sight of the river, their shoulders straightening, their faces lifting. Hope is a dangerous thing, but you can't help feeling it. To a flicker of light in the shadows of your heart, Sir Khan calls a brief halt, letting the horses rest, letting the men drink from their water skins. You take a moment to close your eyes. The warm sun on your face a small mercy. A light joke comes to mind, something about trading your battered armor for a fishing pole. Sitting by the river with your toes in the cool water. You almost say it out loud. But the moment pauses, and you let the silence stand instead, as you remount. Sir Khan leans close. "We're close now," he says, his voice slow. "But the enemy knows it. To be ready." You nod, your heart thudding in your chest. The river is so close you can almost taste it. The promise of safety, a bomb to the ache in your bones. You ride on. The road winding down toward the water. The sun sinking lower in the sky. The enemy is out there, somewhere in the shadows. But for now, the forest holds its peace. And you, tired and bruised and half lost, are still alive. For now, That's enough. The river glitters like a blade in the twilight. The water's edge lined with reeds that whisper softly in the breeze. You draw your horse to a halt at the bank. The sound of the current a low, steady hum beneath the night's hush. The men dismount, moving slowly, their bodies heavy with exhaustion and relief. Sir Khan stands by the water, his eyes fixed on the far bank. We'll cross here, he says, his voice quiet but firm. If the gods are kind, the enemy won't be far behind us. You watch the water flow past, the surface rippling with the last light of the setting sun. It's cold, you know, biting and swift, but it's also the line between life and death. The men begin to wade in, their breath steaming in the chill air, the current pulling at their legs. You follow, the water shocking against your skin, your boots filling and your legs going numb with the cold. Each step is a fight, the weight of your armor dragging at you, the river's pull strong and insistent. You keep your eyes on the far bank, the promise of solid ground, a beacon in the half-light. Halfway across, you slip, your foot skidding on a mossy rock. The water surges up around you, cold as ice, and for a moment you're sure you're going to fall. Sir Khan's hand closes round your arm, steadying you, his grip iron strong. Careful, he says, his voice slow. We're not done yet, you nod. Your teeth chattering. Push on. The river is deeper here, the current's stronger. But you don't stop. You can't. The enemy is close. You can feel it in the way the forest seems to hold its breath, the way the birds have gone silent. When you finally reach the far bank, you collapse onto the grass, your breath ragged in your throat. The men stagger up beside you, their faces pale with cold and fear. But they're here. They're alive. For now. That's enough. You glance back at the river, the moonlight turning the water to molten silver. The forest on the far side is dark and still, the enemy hidden somewhere in the shadows. You wonder if they'll cross tonight, or if they'll wait for dawn. Historians still debate whether the enemy ever reached this crossing or whether the river itself claimed them. Some say the water rose that night, a sudden flood that swept away any who tried to follow. Others claim the enemy camped on the far bank, waiting for the morning light to strike. You don't know which to believe. All you know is the weight of the water in your boots and the cold ache in your bones. Sir Khan gives the order to move, his voice quiet but sure. The men gather what they can, their movements slow, their faces drawn. You pull yourself to your feet, your legs trembling with fatigue. The road ahead is a narrow track through the reeds, the way winding and uncertain. You keep your head low, your breath coming in soft gasps. The night is quiet round you, the forest holding its secrets close. A light joke comes to mind, something about trading your battered sword for a nice warm blanket and a mug of something strong. But the words die in your throat. You're too tired for jokes now, too aware of the cold and the weight of the darkness pressing in round you. The men move in a loose line, their eyes darting to every shadow, every flicker of movement in the trees. You can feel the fear in them, the way it curls tight in their chests. But you can also feel something else, something like hope, or maybe just stubbornness. You wonder what the prince would have said if he were here, what words he would have found to steady the men's hearts. He had a way of making you believe, even when the world was falling apart. You remember the way he'd laugh, the way his eyes would spark with a kind of light that made everything else seem small. You think of the king, to his quiet strength, the weight of his years. You wonder if he knew how this would end, if he'd seen the shape of it in the lines of the battlefield. The forest opens up round you, the trees thinning as the land rises into low hills. Sir Khan calls a halt, the men gathering close in the darkness. He stands in the center of the circle, his sword resting across his knees. We'll make camp here, he says. The river is at our backs, and the hills will give us some warning if the enemy tries to follow. You sink to the ground. Your body aching with exhaustion, the men move slowly, unrolling blankets, lighting small fires that burn low and careful. The smoke curls up into the night. The smell of it sharp and comforting. For a moment, you just sit there, your sword resting across your lap. The stars wheel overhead, cold and distant, and you feel the weight of the night pressing down on you. A soft rustle in the grass catches your attention, and you glance up to see a small creature, a fox, its coat silver in the moonlight, watching you from the edge of the camp. Its eyes gleam, bright and curious, and for a moment, you feel like you're being judged. Go on. You murmur, your voice low. There's nothing here for you tonight. The fox flicks its ears and vanishes back into the shadows, the grass whispering in its wake. You let out a slow breath, the tension easing from your shoulders. Sir Khan settles beside you, his face lined with fatigue. Rest while you can, he says softly. Tomorrow will come soon enough. You nod, your eyes heavy. Round you, the men drift into uneasy sleep, their swords close at hand, their breaths quiet in the night. You close your eyes, the weight of the day settling over you like a blanket. Tomorrow will come, and with it, whatever waits in the shadows. Sleep comes slowly tonight. Like a reluctant guest, you lie on your back, the earth cold beneath you, the crackling of the campfire a faint lullaby in the darkness above. The stars flicker and fade, their light lost in the slow, patient swirl of clouds. You drift in and out of dreams, memories slipping through your fingers like sand in one. You're back at the fortress, the king's voice low and steady as he names you his messenger in another. You're a child again, chasing fireflies in the twilight. Your laughter lost to the wind. A distant owl calls, its cry sharp and lonely. You open your eyes to see the fire burning low, the embers red as blood. The night presses close, thick and heavy, and you shiver in your cloak. Sir Khan sits near the fire, his sword across his knees, his eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the camp. He doesn't look at you, but you can feel the weight of his thoughts, the way his shoulders slope under a burden he's never spoken aloud. You pull your cloak tighter around you and rise, your joints stiff and aching. The ground is cold beneath your feet, the grass damp with dew. You move quietly, careful not to wake the others, and stand beside Sir Khan, your breath misting in the chill air. Can't sleep? He asks, his voice soft, almost gentle. You shake your head. The night's too full, you say. And he nods as if he understands. For a moment, you stand in silence, listening to the forest breathe. The river's song is a faint murmur in the distance, the current pulling at the darkness. You wonder what waits beyond the trees, what ghosts linger in the shadows. Historians still debate whether this was the long, quiet hours before dawn was the calm before the final storm, or just another breath in the endless cycle of fear and hope. Some say it was the moment that sealed your fate, the last chance to turn back. Others say it was nothing more than a pause, a heartbeat in the night. Sir Khan shifts, the firelight catching the lines of his face. The prince would have said something to lift our spirits. He says quietly, he always knew how to find the right words. You nod, remembering the prince's laughter, the way he could turn even the darkest moment into something brighter. He would have said the river's cold enough to chase the ghosts away. You murmur, a small smile tugging at your lips. Sir Khan huffs out a soft laugh, the sound like a spark in the darkness. He agrees, and he would have meant it. The silence stretches out again, comfortable this time. You feel the weight of the night settle around you, but it's not as heavy as it was before. You are not alone in it, none of you are. A soft rustling comes from the edge of the camp, and you turn to see one of the men, old Thomas, his beard more gray than brown string in his blanket. He sits up, blinking blearily at the darkness, and then shuffles over to join you by the fire. Can't sleep. He grumbles, settling himself with a sigh. The river's song keeps me awake. You smile at him, the lines of his face familiar and comforting. It's better than silence, you say, and he chuckles, his breath fogging in the cold. Aye, he says, the silence is where the ghosts live. Another man joins you, a young soldier, barely more than a boy, his eyes wide and hollow. He says nothing, just sits close to the fire, his hands held out to the flickering warmth. You watch the three of you reflected in the flames, three shapes huddled close, the darkness pressing in round you. It's a small thing, this circle of light, but it's enough to keep the night at bay. A light joke flits through your mind, something about charging the enemy with nothing but your good cheer and a pot of stew, but you let it go. The humor too thin to hold in the cold air. Sir Khan stands, stretching the stiffness from his shoulders. Get some rest, he says, his voice low. We ride at first light, you nod. The words are comfort even if they don't change the weight of the night. You return to your blanket, the ground cold and unyielding, and close your eyes. The forest whispers round you, the wind rustling the leaves like a mother soothing a child. You let yourself drift. The memories soft and blurred at the edges dot in your dreams. The king stands on a hill, his cloak billowing in the wind. He says nothing, just watches the river flow, his eyes distant and calm. You want to ask him what he sees, but the words won't come. You wait till the first pale light of dawn, the world painted in shades of grey and gold. The fire is little more than ash, the men moving slowly, their faces drawn and pale. You feel the cold in your bones, the weight of the day pressing down on your shoulders. Sir Khan stands at the edge of the camp, his sword strapped to his back, his eyes on the horizon. He nods to you as you rise, his expression calm. Today, he says softly, we ride to the final stand. You nod, your heart steady in your chest. The river is behind you, the enemy ahead, and the memory of the king and his son like a weight and a promise in your mind. The men mount up, their movements slow and careful. You swing into your saddle, the leather cold beneath your fingers, and take a deep breath. The sun rises, the light sharp and clear, and you ride out into it, the road ahead as uncertain as ever. But you ride anyway, because that's what you've always done. Because there's no other way forward. The sun is a pale coin in the sky. Its light thin and cold as it filters through the morning mist. You ride at the head of the column. The rhythm of hoof beats steady beneath you, the air sharp in your lungs. The forest gives way to open fields, the grass wet with dew, the earth soft and dark beneath your horse's hoofs. The men ride in silence, their breath misting in the chill air, their eyes fixed on the road ahead. You keep your head low, your cloak pulled tight round your shoulders. The weight of the day settles over you like a mantle. The knowledge that this may be the end pressing down with every step dots Sir Carden rides beside you, his face a mask of calm. You know him well enough to see the tension in the set of his jaw, the way his fingers flex round the reins. He says nothing, and neither do you. There's nothing left to say. Historians still debate whether the king and his son rode out together this morning or whether they set out from separate camps, each lost in his own thoughts. Some claim they shared a final moment of quiet, a look that said everything words could not. Others say they were already ghosts, their fates written in the lines of the battlefield. You ride on, the sky brightening slowly, the mist lifting in the warmth of the rising sun. The land rolls out before you, gentle hills and fields of tall grass, the road winding like a ribbon through it all. A bird cries in the distance, a sharp, lonely sound that echoes in the quiet. You shift in your saddle, your muscles stiff from the cold and the long hours of riding. The memory of the fortress comes back to you, stone walls bright in the morning sun, the banners snapping in the wind. You remember the king's voice, low and steady, the weight of his gaze as he sent you out into the world. You'll see the truth of it. he said. And you think maybe you have. Maybe the truth is nothing more than this. The cold morning air, the weight of your sword, the slow, steady beat of your heart. The column halts at a low rise, the road bending away into the distance. Sir Carden raises his hand, his voice low. We wait here. He says, let the scouts find the way. The men dismount, stretching stiff limbs, their faces pale in the cold light. You slide from your saddle, the ground firm beneath your boots. The air smells of damp earth and distant rain. A strange moment follows a hotch, as if the world itself is holding its breath. You close your eyes and let it wash over you. The quiet of bomb against the fear cold tight in your chest. You open your eyes to see the prince's standard snapping in the breeze, a white stag on a field of green. The cloth bright against the grey sky. It's a small thing, but it fills you with a strange, stubborn hope. One of the men young will, with a gap-toothed grin and hands that never seem to stop fidgeting, catches your eye and gives you a quick smile. Better than charging the enemy with a stick and a prayer, he says, his voice slow and wry. You chuckle, the sound soft and easy. You say, though I'm not sure the stick wouldn't be lighter. He laughs, the sound bright in the cold air, and for a moment the fear eases. Just a moment. But it's enough. The scouts return, their faces grave. The enemy waits in the valley. They say, their banners are already flying. Sir Carden nods, his expression calm. Then we ride, he says, and we meet them on the field. You mount up again, the saddle creaking beneath you, the reins cold in your hands. The men form up, their faces set. The quiet of the morning settling over them like a shroud. The ride down into the valley is slow, the road winding between low hills, the grass whispering round your horses' hoofs. You can see the enemy banners in the distance, bright splashes of color against the green of the field. The king and the prince ride at the head of the host, their armor bright in the morning light. The king's face is calm, his eyes steady, the weight of his ears plain in the lines of his face. The prince sits tall in the saddle, his expression fierce and bright, the promise of victory in every line of his body. You wonder what words pass between them in this last hour, what hopes and fears they share. You wonder if they know how this day will end. The enemy waits in silence, their lines still and dark, the glint of steel bright in the sun. You feel the weight of their gaze on you, the cold certainty of it. A sudden breeze stirs the grass, the scent of wildflowers and earth rising round you. You take a deep breath, the air sharp and clean. Let it settle in your chest. Sir Carden rides up beside you, his voice low, stay close. He says, the day will be what it will be. You nod, your hand tightening on the hilt of your sword. The moment stretches out, long and slow, the world balanced on the edge of the blade. A horn sounds, low and mournful, the signal to Formex. You see the men around you straighten, their eyes bright and hard, their hands steady on shield and spear. The king lifts his sword, the blade catching the light. For the realm, he says, his voice slow but clear. For the realm, you echo, your voice steady, the words a promise. The charge begins slow, a walk that turns to a trot. Then a canter, the ground shudders beneath you. The thunder of hooves loud in your ears. You draw your sword, the weight of it familiar and comforting. The air tastes of metal and earth. The roar of the charge rising round you. You ride into the sun, the banners streaming above you, the enemy waiting in the valley. And in that moment, between the first beat of your heart and the clash of steel, you feel the weight of history settle over you like a cloak. The clash comes like a storm breaking overhead, swords ringing on shields, the air full of cries and the hot stink of blood. You grip your sword tight, the leather of the hilt slick with sweat. Your arm aching from the shock of every blow. The enemy is a wall before you, dark and unyielding, the gleam of their armor catching the sun. You push forward, your breath coming in ragged gasps. The world narrowed to the arc of your blade and the space in front of you, round you. The noise is of all men shouting, the clash of steel, the thud of hooves as cavalry charge in from the flanks. You catch glimpses of familiar faces, Will with his gap-toothed grin twisted in a snarl. Will Tomas, his beard dark with sweat. You fight beside them. The three of you, a small knot of defiance in the chaos. A blow glances off your shoulder, the impact jarring down your arm. You stagger, the breath driven from your lungs. But you keep your feet. You can't stop. There's no room for anything but the next breath, the next step, the next strike. Historians still debate whether the king fell early in the battle or if he fought on until the final charge. Some say he was struck down by a spear as he rallied his knights. Others that he died at the heart of the melee, his sword still in his hand. You fight on. The weight of your sword an anchor that keeps you grounded. The sun is high now, the heat of it beating down on your back, the sweat stinging your eyes. The air smells of iron and earth, and somewhere, the faint scent of wild flowers crushed under the clash of hooves. A horse screams nearby, a shrill sound that cuts through the din. You turn in time to see the prince, his white stag banner bright against the turmoil, his sword flashing in the sun. He's a beacon in the chaos, every motion sure and fierce. A line of enemy soldiers surges forward, shields locked tight, and the prince rides straight at them. You see him raise his sword, hear his crier call that carries over the clash of battle. For the king, he shouts, and the men round him answer with a roar. You're swept up in it, the sound filling your chest, the fear and exhaustion burning away in the heat of it. You charge forward, your sword rising and falling, the rhythm of it as natural as breathing. The enemy line breaks, the press of bodies surging forward and then falling back. You stumble, your boot catching on something half buried in the churned earth. You look down and see a young man, his eyes wide and staring, a thin trickle of blood at the corner of his mouth. You don't have time to mourn. You press on, your sword heavy in your hand, your breath ragged in your throat. Sir Khan appears at your side, his face streaked with dirt and blood. Keep moving, he shouts, his voice barely audible over the din. You nod, the words lost in the roar of battle, but you hear them in your bones. You push forward, the enemy giving ground. The surge of victory, a bright spark in the darkness. For a moment, you see the king ahead of you, his cloak bright in the sun, his sword rising and falling with steady precision. He fights like the man you've always known, calm, unyielding. His presence acquired strength in the chaos. But then you see the spear long and black against the bright sky arcing toward him. You cry out, your voice lost in the noise. But the king doesn't falter. He turns to meet the blow, his sword rising. But the spear strikes true. He falls from his horse, the motion slow and heavy. As if the world itself has turned to honey, the men round him surge forward. A wall of steel and flesh, and you lose sight of him in the crutch. You push toward the spot where he fell. The fight round you a blur of motion and noise. You reach the place. The ground churned to mud, but the king is gone, carried away by his men or lost in the crush of bodies. A hand grabs your shoulder, pulling you back. Sir Carden's face swims before you, his eyes hard. We can't help him now, he says. We have to hold. You nod, your throat tight, and turn back to the fight. The prince is still there, his sword a blur of motion, his voice rising in a call that lifts the hearts of the men round him. He fights with the fury of a man who knows he rides to his end. Every stroke a promise, every breath a prayer. And then you see it the enemy captain, tall and broad-shouldered, his black helm gleaming in the sun. He rides straight at the prince, his lance lowered, his horse foaming at the bit. The prince meets him head-on. There clash a bright flare of steel and fury. For a moment, it seems the prince will break through, his sword driving the captain back. But the captain's lance finds the gap in the prince's armor. the point sliding home with a sickening finality. The prince shouts a sound of surprise and pain, and you see him falter, his horse rearing beneath him. He falls, the white stag banner slipping from his hand, and the world goes quiet round you. You push forward, your heart in your throat, but the enemy surges round you, a tide of steel and death. You see Sir Carden fall, his sword lost beneath a press of bodies. You see Will's grin fade to a snarl as he's pulled from his saddle, his laughter lost in the roar. You fight on, your sword rising and falling, the world narrowed to the weight of the blade in your hand and the cold certainty that this is the end. But even as the sun begins to sink, the light turning red as blood, you keep fighting because there's nothing else left to do. You're still fighting when the light begins to fade, the long shadows of evening creeping over the field. The battle has slowed to a brutal slog, men locked in a dance of death, their breath ragged in the cool evening air. The clang of steel has become a rhythm in your bones, the weight of your sword a constant ache in your arm. You barely notice the pain anymore, your mind focused on the next step, the next breath. Round you, the field is a ruin of bodies and churned earth. The grass is slick with blood, the air thick with the stink of sweat and iron. The cries of the wounded rise and fall in the dusk, a bitter hymn to the day's end. Historians still debate whether the king died quickly or lingered in the grass, his eyes on the sky. Some say his last words were a prayer for his son, others that he died with his sword in hand, silent and resolute. You keep moving, your feet finding purchase on the torn earth, your sword an extension of your will. You don't think of the king, not now. You count. There's only the fight, the surge of the enemy, the need to hold the line a little longer. A strange quiet falls over the field as the last of the enemy begins to pull back. Their retreat is slow, ragged thing. You watch them go, your chest heaving, your sword heavy in your hand. The prince's banner lies crumpled in the dirt, the white stag stained red with blood. You stoop to pick it up, the cloth stiff with drying gore, and hold it close to your chest. You feel the weight of it more than cloth, more than color, a symbol of everything you've lost today, everything you fought to protect. Sir Khan's body lies nearby, his face turned to the sky, his eyes empty. You kneel beside him for a moment, your hand on his cooling shoulder. Rest well. You whisper, your voice lost in the sighing of the wind. You rise slowly, your legs trembling, turn to where the last of the enemy has vanished over the hill. The battlefield is quiet now, the dead and the dying the only witnesses to the day's end. The prince lies not far from you, his bright hair dark with blood, his face pale in the fading light. You kneel beside him, the banner still clutched in your hand, and brush the hair from his forehead. His eyes stare up at the sky, empty and unseen. You close them gently, your fingers trembling, and bow your head. A hush settles over the field, the last light of the sun painting the sky in gold and crimson. You sit for a while, the banner draped across your knees, and let the quiet wash over you. A strange thing happens, then a soft rain begins to fall. The drops cool on your skin, washing the blood from your hands, the dirt from your face. The rain smells of earth and growing things. A promise of renewal even in this place of death. You lift your head, the water running in rivulets down your cheeks, and for a moment you let yourself believe that there is still hope, that something can grow from this ruin, that the king's dream is not yet dead. You rise slowly, the banner still in your grasp, and begin to walk the field. You pass the bodies of friend and foe alike, each one a silent testament to the cost of this day. You find Will where he fell, his grin stilled forever, his hands still clutching his broken spear. You pause for a moment, your hand on his shoulder, and whisper a quiet farewell. The sun has almost set now, the last light of the day caught in the clouds. A soft glow that lingers even as the world darkens that you reach the crest of the hill and look back at the field below. The valley shrouded in mist and memory. The king and his son lie somewhere in that quiet, their dreams bound together in death. You stand for a long moment, the banner in your hand, and let the weight of the day settle over you. A soft voice breaks the quiet, one of the surviving knights, his face pale in the dusk. "What now?" he asks, his voice thin and uncertain. You look at him, the question hanging between you like the last note of a song. We go on. You say, your voice slow but certain. We carry their memory. We keep the light alive. He nods, his eyes bright with tears, and together you turn from the field. The banner held high in the gathering dark. The road ahead is long and uncertain. The night deep and cold. But you walk it anyway. The echo of the king's voice in your heart. The promise of the prince's bright courage in every step. You walk into the night, the rain soft on your skin, and know that this is not the end. The night is thick with fog as you lead the survivors away from the battlefield, your boots sinking into the soft, wet earth. The gentle patter of rain on your shoulders becomes a rhythm that keeps you moving, even as your body cries out for rest. The fog closes round you like a shroud, muffling the sounds of the wounded who still lie out there, their cries fading with the dusk. You don't look back, you can't. Instead, you keep your eyes fixed on the road ahead. The prince's banner a dim shape in your hands. Some of the men are silent, their faces pale and drawn. Others mutter prayers or curses under their breath, their voices low and tight. The night seems to press in round you, the air cold and heavy with the scent of wet grass and blood. You pause at a small rise, the fog swirling round your feet, and look back at the field you've left behind. It's lost now, swallowed by the night and the mist, the memories of the day already fading into shadows. Historians still debate whether the fog that night was a blessing or a curse, whether it hid the retreat and saved lives, or whether it swallowed the wounded and the lost. Some say the fog was a sign of the gods' displeasure, others that it was mercy in a world that had seen too much blood. You stand there for a moment, your breath clouding in the cold air, and then turn your back on the past. There's nothing for you there now, only the road ahead, and the burden of memory, but the men follow you, their steps slow and heavy. You can hear the jingle of armor, the soft slap of leather boots on wet earth. The prince's banner is a pale shape in the darkness, the white stag still bright beneath the bloodstains. You remember how he looked in the final moments, fierce and bright. His eyes alight with a fire that didn't falter even as the world fell apart around him. You carry that image with you now, a talisman against the dark. You keep your voice low as you speak to the men, the words simple and steady. We'll find shelter soon, you promise, though you're not sure where. We'll see the dawn together. A few of them nod, their faces set in lines of weariness and determination. Others just keep their eyes on the road, one foot in front of the other, their shoulders bowed beneath the weight of the day. The road winds on through their night, the fog soft and cold around you. Somewhere ahead, you know there must be a village or a camp, a place where you can rest and regroup. But for now, the world is nothing but darkness and the quiet shuffle of feet on wet earth. A strange moment of beauty comes when the moon breaks through the clouds, a pale light that silvers the mist and paints the world in ghostly shades. You pause to look up at it. The light cold and distant, but somehow comforting. Look at that, you murmur, your voice soft. The moon still shines. A small, tired laugh answers you, one of the younger men, his face streaked with dirt and tears. She doesn't care much for kings and battles, he says, his voice a whisper in the night. You smile at that, a small spark of warmth in the cold. No, she doesn't. You agree. And for a moment the world seems a little less heavy. You walk on, the moon your silent companion. the banner a promise held high. The night is long, but you keep moving. The memory of the king and his son a quiet fire in your heart. You pass a small stream, the water dark and swift in the moonlight. You pause there to let the men drink. The cold water a sharp relief against parched throats and cracked lips. The mist curls over the water. The faint gurgle of the stream a soothing sound in the quiet. You wash your hands there, the blood and dirt swirling away in the black water. It feels like a small ritual, a way to let go of the day's horrors, even if only for a moment. One of the men finds a fallen branch and lights it from the embers of a small fire someone managed to coax from damp twigs. The flicker of flame is a fragile comfort, the light dancing in the fog, casting long shadows that shift and twist with every step. You walk on with that small fire at the center of your group, the warm, the fragile bulwark against the cold night. The men huddle close round it, their faces soft in the shifting light, the terror and exhaustion of the day slowly fading into the quiet rhythm of survival. You find an old ruined chapel at the edge of a stand of trees, its stones cold and mossy in the moonlight. The roof is gone, the walls cracked and broken, but it's shelter of a sort. You lead the men inside, the broken arches casting shadows that flicker and dance in the firelight. You set the banner down at the foot of a shattered altar. The white stag a quiet sentinel in the dark. You don't pray, not exactly, but you stand there for a moment, your head bowed. Let the silence of the place settle over you like a benediction. The men settle in round the fire, their eyes closing, their breath slowing. You sit with them, your back against the cold stone, and let the quiet wash over you that tomorrow will come, with all its pain and uncertainty. But for now, there is only the night and the memory of the fallen, and you, still standing, the night stretches on. The fire at the heart of the ruined chapel burning low. You are half dreaming as you sit there, your head nodding with exhaustion, your fingers still wrapped round the banner's rough fabric. Outside, the fog drifts past the broken arches, a soft grey tide that whispers through the stone. The air is cold, but the fire's warmth is enough to keep the worst of the chill at bay. You hear a soft rustle behind you and turn to see one of the younger men, Edric, with his dark eyes and quick smile picking through the fallen stones. He finds a small carved figure, a saint's image worn smooth by years of wind and rain. Look at this, he says, holding it out to you. Do you think it's still holy, even now? You take the figure from him, turning it over in your hands. The face is almost gone, the features soft and blurred. But there's still something in the shape of it, something gentle, something enduring. Maybe it is. You say softly. Or maybe it's just a reminder that even in ruins, something of what was still remains. He smiles at that. A quick flush of warmth tucks the figure into his belt. I'll keep it close, he says, and you nod. Historians still debate whether the chapel was truly a sacred place or just another ruin, a relic of a faith that had already begun to fade. Some say the king himself prayed here once, seeking guidance before the final battle. Others say it was abandoned long before, the stones hollow and empty. You lean back against the wall and close your eyes, the weight of the day heavy on your shoulders. The flicker of the fire paints strange shapes on the ceiling, shadows that seem to dance and shift with every breath dot in the quiet. Your mind drifts to the stories you grew up hearing, the tales of the king's triumphs, the songs of his conquests. He was a hero once, a shining light in the darkness, his name spoken with reverence and hope. But tonight, those stories feel like echoes, fading into the cold stone and the silence of the dead. Tonight, he is just another fallen man, his dreams as fragile as the rest. You wonder what he was thinking in his final moments, whether he saw the end coming, whether he still believed in the dream he carried. You wonder if his son felt that same spark, that same weight. The fire crackles, and you open your eyes to see Will String in his sleep, a soft smile on his lips. He always did find a way to laugh, Even in the darkest moments, you remember the way he'd teased you before the battle. His voice light and easy. "Don't forget to bring me back something shiny," he'd said. His grin bright as the sun. A crown, maybe. Or at least a fancy sword. You rolled your eyes. But he'd just laughed and clapped you on the shoulder. "I'll settle for your safe return," he'd added, his voice softening. Now, he sleeps with his head pillowed on his pack, his breath slow and steady. You reach over and pull a blanket round his shoulders, the small act of comfort in the quiet. Outside, the fog begins to thin, the moonlight brightening the broken stones of the chapel. You stand and step through the ruined archway, the cold air biting at your face. You walk a little ways into the night, the mist curling round your feet. The field lies beyond, still and silent, the dead hidden beneath the fog. You can't see them, but you can feel their presence like a weight in the air, a memory that lingers long after the last breath is gone. A strange sound breaks the quiet low, musical chime that seems to come from nowhere. You pause, your heart quickening, and listen. It comes again, a soft ringing like distant bells, echoing in the night. You turn and see a shape in the fog, a small figure, draped in tattered robes, moving slowly among the stones. The figure stops and turns to you, and you see the faint glint of metal in their hand. "Who are you?" You call, your voice slow. The figure tilts their head, the bell in their hand chiming softly. "Just a wanderer," they say, their voice gentle and strange. A keeper of memories. You watch them for a long moment, the fog swirling round their feet. "What memories?" You ask. "All of them," they reply. "The dreams of kings and the songs of the fallen, the laughter and the tears, the bright hopes and the bitter ends, all of it." You shiver, the cold seeping into your bones. "Why are you here?" The figure lifts the bell, and it rings again, the sound soft and sad, to remind you that nothing is ever truly lost. They say, "Not while someone still remembers." You stand there in the fog, the weight of the day pressing down on you, and for a moment you let yourself believe them, that the king's dream still lives in the memory of those who remain. The figure turns and vanishes into the mist, the bells song fading into silence. You watch the fog swallow them whole, and then turn back to the chapel, your steps slow and sure. The fire still burns there, a small light in the darkness, and you know you'll carry it with you. No matter how far you have to go, you settle back by the fire, the banner at your side, and close your eyes. The night is long, but you're still here, still breathing, still remembering, and that's enough. For now, the dawn comes slowly, the first light of day creeping across the broken stones of the chapel. You wake to the soft murmur of voices, the crackle of the dying fire. The men are stirring, their faces drawn and pale in the grey light. You stretch your aching limbs and stand, the chill of the morning air biting at your skin. The world is hushed, the fog drifting away in tatters, revealing the battered earth of the battlefield below. You walk to the archway and stand there, the prince's banner in your hand. The valley is quiet, the bodies of the fallen stark against the churned earth. It's a sight that will never leave you, etched into your mind like a scar. Edric joins you, his breath steaming in the cold. "We should bury them," he says softly, "the king and the prince. They deserve better than this." You nod. "We will. But first, we find the living." You turn back to the men, your voice steady as you give your orders. You break them into small groups, some to search the field for survivors, others to gather wood for a pyre. The morning air is sharp with the scent of frost and the faint tang of blood. Historians still debate whether the pyres you built that day were an act of mercy or of desperation. Some say it was a final tribute to the fallen, a way to honor their sacrifice. Others say it was a way to cleanse the field of death, to drive away the memory of what had been lost. You walk the field, your boots sinking into the wet earth. your eyes searching the faces of the dead. You find a few who still draw breath, men broken and bleeding, their eyes wide with pain and shock. You kneel beside one, his face pale and bloodied. You're safe. You tell him, your voice low and steady. We're here. You are not alone. He grips your arm with weak fingers, his breath ragged. The king, the prince, they fell, you say gently. But we're still here, and we'll carry them with us. He nods, tears streaking his dirt-smeared face, and you press his hand before moving on. You find Will's brother among the dead, his face turned to the sky, a faint smile on his lips. You kneel beside him for a moment, your hand on his shoulder, and whisper a quiet farewell. The men work quickly, gathering the bodies of friend and foe alike, laying them side by side on the cold earth. There's no time for prayers or rituals, only the simple act of gathering, of remembering. The pyres rise slowly, the wood stacked high, the bodies laid with care. You light them with a torch, the flames catching and crackling, the smoke rising in dark plumes against the pale sky. You watch the fire burn, the heat of it washing over your face, the smell of it sharp in your nose. The men stand with you, their heads bowed, the weight of the day heavy on their shoulders. The flames crackle and roar, the heat driving back the chill of the morning. You stand there until the last of the fire dies, the smoke drifting away on the breeze. When it's done, you turn away, the prince's banner still in your hand. The white stag now a symbol of all you've lost and all you have yet to fight for. You gather the men and begin the slow march away from the field. The ruined chapel at your back, the memory of the king and his son a quiet fire in your heart. You walk in silence, the sun rising slowly over the hills, the world bright and cold. You pass through the empty fields, the earth still scarred from the battle. The air sharp with the scent of ashdot. You reach a small stream by midday, the water clear and cold. The men stop to drink, their faces softening as they wash away the grime of the night. You kneel at the water's edge, the prince's banner resting in your lap, and close your eyes. The memory of the king's voice comes back to you then, soft and steady. The dream lives on in those who remember. You open your eyes and dip your hands into the cold water, the chill of it shocking, cleansing. You let the water run over your fingers, washing away the blood and the dirt, the weight of the past. You stand, the banner bright in the sunlight, and turn to the men. We move on. You say, your voice calm and sure, the king's dream didn't die with him. It lives in us, in what we do next. They look at you, their faces set in lines of quiet resolve. They've seen the worst of it now, the darkness and the fire. But they're still here, still standing. You shoulder the banner and lead them on, your steps steady, your heart heavy but unbroken. The road ahead is long, the future uncertain. But you walk it anyway, the memory of the fallen a quiet promise in your heart dot and the prince's banner. Bright against the sky, the sun is high overhead by the time you reach the outskirts of a small village. Its thatched roofs rising from the gentle folds of the land like soft whispers of life. The place seems untouched by the battle, though you can feel the tension in the air, a wariness in the way the children peek round corners, the way the women clutch baskets close to their chests. You pause at the edge of the village, the prince's banner wrapped carefully in your arms. The men gather close behind you, their faces drawn and hollow. You're all strangers here, but you hold yourself with quiet purpose, your voice calm as you speak to the first villager who dares to approach. Peace, you say, your tone low and even. We mean no harm. We're only passing through. The old man looks at you, his eyes narrow and sharp. You're from the battle, he says, his voice rough as winter bark. We heard the sounds of it, the songs of death. You nod. It's over now. We're just trying to find shelter, a place to rest. He studies you for a long moment, then gestures with a nod. There's an empty barn by the mill, he says. It's yours for the night. But no trouble. You hear. You nod your thanks and lead your men through the narrow lanes, past gardens gone to seed and chickens scratching in the dust. The barn is a simple place, broad beams and rough-hewn planks. The air inside sweet with the smell of straw and old hay. The men settle quickly, grateful for a roof over their heads and a moment's peace. You watch them as they strip off battered armor and wipe dirt from their faces. Their laughter soft and a little strained. Will finds a cracked jug of cider in a corner and tosses it round. His grin tired but warm. To the king, he says, lifting the jug, and to the prince, you lift it in turn. The words simple but full of weight. To their memory, you say, your voice quiet, may we carry them with us. Historians still debate whether this night in the barn was a moment of healing or just a brief pause in the tide of war. Some say it was a turning point, the spark of a new hope. Others say it was only a lull, a false calm before the storm returned. You settle down in a corner of the barn, the prince's banner beside you, and watch the dust dance in the beams of sunlight that filter through the slats. It's a peaceful scene, and for a moment, you let yourself believe that peace is possible, that the world can still be gentle. Will flops down beside you, his head resting against a bale of hay. You look like hell, he says with a tired smile. But better than most, I guess. You snort softly. Thanks, I think. He grins and closes his eyes, his breathing evening out as he drifts off. You watch him for a moment, the rise and fall of his chest steady and calm. Then lean back yourself, your head resting against the rough wood of the wall. The quiet of the barn is a balm. The soft rustle of straw and the distant coo of pigeons in the rafters. Outside, the village moves in gentle rhythms, children laughing in the sun. The ring of a hammer on an anvil. The low murmur of voices. You let your mind wander, your thoughts drifting like smoke. You think of the king's final charge, the way his voice rose over the clash of steel, a bright flame in the darkness. You think of the prince's last breath, the soft rattle of it in his chest, the way his hand had gripped yours even as the light faded from his eyes. You wonder what they'd make of this moment, the quiet, the laughter, the small signs of life. You wonder if they'd be proud, or if they'd weep for all that had been lost. A sudden noise snaps you from your reverie, a soft gasp from the doorway. You turn and see a young woman standing there, a basket of bread in her hands. She looks at you with wide eyes, her mouth working silently for a moment. I brought food, she says finally, her voice trembling. You stand and cross the barn, taking the basket from her with a gentle smile. Thank you. You say softly, you're kind. She nods, her cheeks flushing pink, and backs away quickly, disappearing into the bright afternoon light. You carry the basket to the center of the barn, setting it down where the men can see. Fresh bread, still warm from the oven, and a few small wheels of cheese, a feast by the standards of the road. The men gather close, their eyes bright, their laughter ringing low and soft as they tear the bread and share the cheese. Will winks at you as he takes a bite, his grin crooked and easy. You'd think we were kings ourselves, he says round a mouthful. Living like this, you chuckle, the sound warm in your throat. We're alive. That's more than enough. The afternoon passes in a gentle haze of sun and laughter. The men resting, their spirits lifting just a little. You sit with the banner in your lap, your fingers tracing the threads of the white stag, the symbol of hope you refuse to let go. Outside, the sun dips lower, the sky painted in soft shades of pink and gold. You feel the weight of the day in your bones, but there's a quiet strength in it, to a sense that even in the face of loss, you can still find something worth holding onto. As the light fades and the first stars prick the sky, you close your eyes and breathe deep, the scent of bread and straw sweet in your lungs. You're still here, still breathing, still carrying the memory of the king and the prince like a fire in your chest. And that's enough for tonight. The night settles over the village like a soft blanket. The stars bright and cold above the dark thatched roofs. You lie awake in the barn. The sounds of the men's breathing slow and steady in the darkness. You turn the prince's banner over in your hands, the cloth rough beneath your fingers. The white stag still bright even in the dim light. You wonder if you'll ever see it raised high again. If the dream it carried can survive the blood and the fire. Sleep comes in fitful snatches. Your mind drifting between memory and fear. You dream of the king's voice, low and calm, the steady beat of his heart against your shoulder. You dream of the prince's laughter, warm and bright. The way it lit the shadows. You wake with a start. The dawn light pale and thin. The chill of the morning air sharp in your lungs. The men are stirring round you, their movements slow and careful. Will sits beside the embers of last night's fire, his breath fogging in the cold. Time to move on. He says softly, his eyes meeting yours. The world doesn't stop, even for kings. You nod, your throat tight. You gather your gear with quiet efficiency, your fingers numb and clumsy in the cold. The men move in silence, the laughter of the night be foregone, replaced by the quiet determination of the road dot outside. The village is waking roosters crowing, the soft clatter of pails at the well, the low murmur of voices. You shoulder your pack and step into the morning, the prince's banner folded carefully beneath your arm. The villagers watch you with wary eyes, their faces tight with fear and curiosity. A child tugs at her mother's skirts, her eyes wide as she stares at the battered soldiers in their midst. You offer her a tired smile, but she ducks behind her mother's legs. Historians still debate whether the village offered you aid out of kindness or out of fear. Some say it was a moment of shared humanity. Others claim it was the price of survival in a world that had lost its mind. You pass through the narrow streets, the muddy ruts of carts and the scent of wood smoke in the air. At the edge of the village, you pause and look back, the sun rising behind the rooftops, painting them in soft gold. You raise a hand in quiet farewell, then turn away, your steps carrying you forward, the men full in behind you, their boots crunching in the frost-hardened earth, their heads bowed beneath the weight of memory and hope. The road is a ribbon of dirt and frozen puddles, winding away into the hills. You walk with your eyes fixed ahead, your mind focused on each step, the quiet rhythm of your breath. The world feels vast and empty, the fields stretching out on either side. The sky so wide it makes you feel small. You crest a low rise and see the ruins of an old watchtower ahead. The stones weathered and cracked, the roof long since caved in. You pause for a moment, the men gathering close round you. Rest here, you say, your voice calm and steady. We'll take the high ground for a while. See what's ahead. They nod and begin to settle in, their movements practiced and silent. Will climbs to the top of the tower, his eyes scanning the horizon. You follow him up, the stones cold beneath your fingers, the wind sharp against your face. From the top, you can see for miles the rolling hills, the silver ribbon of the river winding through the valley, the dark smudge of the forest in the distance. It's a beautiful view, the kind that makes you catch your breath. Will turns to you, his eyes serious. There's a fork in the road ahead. He says, one leads north, through the forest. The other follows the river. Which way? You study the land. The memory of the king's voice a quiet echo in your mind. The forest is thick. You say slowly, too easy to get lost. We'll follow the river. It's slower, but we'll find food and shelter along the banks. Will nods. You always have a plan, he says with a small smile. Even when the world falls apart, you shrug. The world always falls apart. You say softly, it's how you keep moving that matters. He claps your shoulder, his grin warm. Then let's keep moving. You climb down from the tower, the wind tugging at your hair, the cold biting at your fingers. The men are ready, their packs slung over their shoulders, their eyes bright with quiet determination. You lead them down the slope, the sun climbing higher in the sky, the air crisp and clean. The river glitters in the distance, a silver thread winding through the world, and you follow it with steady steps as you walk. You find the rhythm of the road again, the crunch of frost beneath your boots, the soft murmur of the river, the quiet jokes traded in low voices. Will nudges you with a grin. Remember when we used to think crocodile poop was a miracle cure for a sunburn? He says, his laughter soft and warm. You snort. I'd take crocodile poop over this cold any day, you say dryly. And he laughs, the sound bright in the still morning. The road stretches on, the river a constant companion, the world opening up round you in wide. Soft hues of winter light. You feel the weight of the king's dream in your heart, a quiet fire that refuses to be snuffed out. And as the day drifts on, you know that as long as you keep moving, as long as you carry the memory of what was lost, the dream will live on. The river hums softly beside you as you walk, its waters smooth and dark beneath the pale winter sun. The men keep to the bank, their boots sinking into the soft earth, their breaths misting in the cold air. You feel the steady tug of the current at your side, a gentle reminder of the world's quiet power. You watch the water move, the way it glitters in the light, the small eddies that catch the sun and throw it back in dancing spots. It's a beautiful thing, and for a moment, you let yourself be lulled by it. But the road ahead is long, and the world doesn't pause for beauty. You keep your steps steady, your eyes on the horizon, the prince's banner still folded tight beneath your arm as you walk. You pass the bones of old battles, broken swords half buried in the mud, a rusted helm caught in the roots of a willow, a single boot left to rot in the reeds. The world doesn't forget, even when you try to. Will catches up to you, his breath quick, his grin bright despite the cold. There's a mill up ahead, he says. I saw smoke, someone's alive there. You nod. We'll see if they'll share a fire. Maybe trade a song for a loaf of bread. Historians still debate whether these small acts of barter and kindness meant anything in the grand scheme of things. Some say they were the seeds of peace, tiny threads woven into the ragged cloth of history. Others say they were just the flotsam of survival, moments of warmth that meant nothing in the end. You choose to believe they mattered. But every loaf of bread shared, every fire tended, was a promise, a way to say that the world could still be kind. Even in its darkest hours, the mill is a small, sturdy place. Its walls of stone and timber weathered by years of wind and rain. The water wheel turns slow and steady, the creak of its motion a low, soothing rhythm. Smoke curls from the chimney, the scent of baking bread drifting through the air. You approach with your hands open, your steps slow and careful. An old man leans on the doorframe, his eyes sharp beneath bushy brows. Travelers, he says, his voice low and weary. What do you want? Only a bit of warmth. You say, a place to rest our feet. Maybe trade a song for a meal. The old man studies you for a long moment, then nods. Come in, he says, but no trouble. You hear, inside, the mill is warm and close, the air thick with the scent of flour and yeast. A woman moves round the oven, her hands dusted white, her eyes bright with curiosity. You sit near the fire, the prince's banner tucked carefully beside you. The woman brings bread and a pot of thin broth, and you thank her with a nod, your voice soft. The men eat slowly, their movements careful, as though they're afraid to break the fragile peace. Will leans close, his voice a whisper. Remember that night at the king's hall, when the prince tried to juggle apples and nearly took out the chancellor's nose? You grin, the memory warm and bright. He never could manage it, you say, but he'd always try. Will chuckles, his breath a soft ghost in the air. That's the thing about him, he never gave up. Even when he looked like a fool. You nod, your fingers tracing the pattern of the banner. That's what made him the prince. You say softly. He believed in the dream, even when no one else would. The old man sits across from you, his eyes thoughtful. You were with the king, he says. At the battle. You nod. I was. He sighs, his gaze fixed on the fire. My father fought in the last war, he says. He said the world breaks itself open every generation, but it always finds a way to heal. You wonder if that's true, if the world really can heal, or if it just learns to live with the scars. You leave the mill at dawn. Your steps light on the frost-hardened earth. The old man watches you go, his hand raised in silent farewell. You raise yours in return, a small promise in the cold light of morning. The river leads you onward, the road winding beside it like a slow, patient story. The men walk in silence, their faces set, their eyes fixed on the horizon. You keep the prince's banner close. The white stag a quiet hope in the grey morning dot at midday. You stop to rest beside a stand of ancient oaks, their bare branches reaching for the sky like twisted fingers. Will finds a small stream trickling through the roots, its water cold and clear. He cups it in his hands, the droplets shining like diamonds in the sun. You ever think about what comes next? He asks softly. After all this, you shrug. I think about the road, you say. One step, then the next. He smiles, a small, tired thing. One step. He repeats. That's enough, isn't it? It has to be. You say, your voice a whisper lost in the rustle of the oaks. The sun dips low as the day fades, the sky turning soft with the light of the coming dusk. You stand with the banner held high, the white stag bright against the deepening blue. A quiet promise that even in the dark, hope can still burn. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of it all, the memory of the king's charge, the prince's laughter, the soft hush of the river at your side. The world is broken, but you are still here, still moving. And maybe that's enough. The night comes soft and deep round you. The rivers murmur a steady song in the darkness. The men huddle close to the small fire you built, the faint glow painting their faces in flickering gold. You watch the flames dance, your fingers warm against the gentle heat. The world beyond the circle of light is all shadows and quiet. You feel the weight of it pressing close, the hush of the trees, the soft rustle of unseen things in the underbrush. The prince's banner is folded in your lap. The white stagger pale ghost in the FIRELIGHT dot will sits across from you. His eyes half closed, the tired lines of his face softened by the glow. You ever wonder, he says softly, if the king's dream was too much for this world, too heavy to carry? You watch the embers crackle and sigh. The world isn't made for dreams, you say. But that doesn't mean we stop trying. Historians still debate whether the king's final charge was an act of desperation or a calculated gamble, a last spark of hope in a world gone cold. Some say he was mad to ride into the heart of the storm. Others claim it was the only way to keep the dream alive. You remember the moment he fell, the cry of the prince's voice lost in the roar of the battle, the world shattering round you in a storm of steel and blood. You remember the way the king's eyes met yours one last time, the quiet acceptance there, the fierce, unbroken spark. The fire pops, a sudden spark that startles the men into laughter, breaking the quiet tension of the night. Will grins. The worry in his eyes softened for a moment. We're a sorry lot, he says, but at least we can still laugh. Laughter's cheap. You say, a smile tugging at your lips, easier to carry than a sword. True enough, he says, but it's sharp in its own way. You lean back against your pack, the cold seeping in through the layers of cloth and leather. The men drift to sleep one by one, their breaths deep and slow, the firelight painting the dreams across their closed eyes. You stay awake a little longer, your eyes fixed on the dark line of the river, the soft hush of its current. You think of the king's voice, the way it could turn hard and bright as steel, or soft and warm as dawn. You think of the prince, his laughter, his stubborn faith in a world that didn't want to listen, and you promise yourself you'll carry them both as far as you can dot the dawn comes slow and grey. The colder biting thing that settles in your bones. You wake the men with gentle nudges, the quiet clink of gear being packed, the soft curses that chase the last dreams from their heads. The road follows the river still. Winding through the low hills and the bare winter trees, you move steady and sure, the prince's banner folded tight against your chest. A quiet promise that the world can't steal dot by midday. You come to a small hamlet crouched by the river's edge, its buildings little more than rough huts and a single, setting in. Smoke drifts from the chimney, and the smell of cooking fish hangs heavy in the air. You pause at the edge of the village. The men close behind you wheel glances at you, one eyebrow raised. Fish stew and gossip, I'd wager. He says, his grin a tired echo of the old days. Let's see if they'll share. You say, we could use a warm meal. The villagers watch you with wary eyes as you enter, their faces drawn and hollow from a winter that's been hard on them all. A woman with a baby on her hip nods to you, her eyes curious but cautious dot inside the inn. The air is warm and close, the smell of fish stew and wood smoke thick round you. The innkeeper, a broad-shouldered man with a patchy beard, greets you with a grunt and a wary look. Travelers, he says, we don't see many these days. Not much to see, you say with a wry smile. Only the river and the road. He nods slowly. You'll find no kings here, only empty bellies. We're not looking for kings. You say, just a place to rest our feet. He gestures to a table near the hearth, and you sit with a grateful sigh. The men settle in round you, the warmth of the fire sinking into your bones. Dot leans in, his voice slow. You hear them talk about the battle. He asks, word travels faster than horses these days. You nod. They say the king fell, that the prince died at his side. The innkeeper brings a pot of stew, the broth then but hot, the fish tender and soft. You eat slowly, the warmth of the meal chasing the cold from your fingers. One of the villagers, a weary man with a scar across his cheek, sits nearby, his eyes sharp and curious. You were there, he says quietly, at the battle. You meet his gaze, your spoon pausing. I was, he nods. Some say the king fell with a sword in his hand. Others that he died begging for mercy, which is true. You set the spoon down carefully, the weight of the question settling in your chest. The king fell with a sword in his hand. You say softly, and he died with his son beside him. There was no begging, only the silence of men who know they've done all they can. The man nods, his eyes distant. Good, he says. That's how a king should fall. You finish the stew in silence, the fire crackling low, the weight of the words settling round you like a heavy cloak. When you leave the inn, the sun is low in the sky, the light turning the river to gold. The villagers watch you go, their faces unreadable, the quiet of the place settling behind you like a soft sigh. The road calls you forward, the river's song a constant companion, and you walk on. The prince's banner tight in your hand, the memory of the king's dream bright in your heart, because in the end, that's all you have, your feet on the road, the world round you, and the promise that the dream will live on. No matter how dark the night, the sun slips behind the hills as you walk, its last light spilling soft and pink across the river's slow, dark surface. The men move quiet round you, the weight of the journey heavy in their shoulders and the lines of their faces. You feel it too, like a soft ache beneath your ribs, a memory of what was lost and what still lies ahead. The prince's banner is a warm weight against your chest. The white stagger silent witness to every step you take. You find a small clearing for the night. A patch of frost-bitten grass hemmed in by bare-branched trees. Will drops his pack with a soft grunt, stretching his arms toward the stars as they begin to blink into being above the river. Cold night, he says, his breath a pale ghost in the dusk. Good for stories, maybe. You smile. The fire crackling softly as you feed it a handful of dry twigs. Always good for stories, you say, your voice soft and sure. Will grins, the lines of his face easing a little. Then tell one. He says, tell one that isn't about kings and battles and broken dreams. You think for a moment, your fingers idly tracing the worn edge of the prince's banner. All right, you say, once, long before the king rode to war, there was a boy who found a fox in the woods. The fox had a coat the color of autumn leaves and eyes that gleamed like moonlight. Will laugh softly, the sound warm in the cold. A fox, sounds like trouble. They always are, you say, but the boy was lonely, and the fox was clever. And together they taught each other how to steal eggs and outrun dogs. And for a little while, the world was nothing but laughter and the rush of running feet. Historians still debate whether these small tales, these quiet, personal legends, shape the hearts of men more than any king's decree or priest's sermon. Some say it's the stories we share by the fire that carry the real weight of history. You like to believe it's true. Will chuckles, pulling his cloak tight round his shoulders. Not a bad story, he says, better than dreams of kingdoms. Maybe, you say. But even the fox had to learn no matter how clever you are, the world doesn't always let you keep what you love. He nods, his eyes reflecting the firelight. Still worth the run. You smile, the memory of the boy and the fox soft in your chest. Always, you say, always worth the run. The fire burns low as the night deepens, the shadows stretching long and soft round you. The river murmurs in the darkness, a quiet, steady voice that has always been there. You let your eyes close for a moment, the ache in your bones easing in the warmth. The men's voices drift round you, soft and slow, the gentle murmur of men who have seen too much and still keep moving. In your dreams, the king's voice comes to you, low and certain. The world is broken, he says, but you are not. And you wake with the memory of his smile, the quiet strength in his eyes. The dawn comes cold and bright, the sky a pale wash of winter light. You stand with the men, your breath misting in the still air, the prince's banner bright against the grey morning. You walk on, the river a constant companion, the quiet rhythm of your steps a comfort. The world feels smaller somehow, the road a thin line of promise in the pale light of day. At midday, you come to a crossroads, the signpost worn and weathered by years of sun and rain. One path curves north toward the hills, the other east along the river's edge. Will studies the sign, his brow furrowed. East, I think, he says, the river's kind. And there's a village down that way fisherfolk and old wives with tales of the moon. You nod. East. Then, you say, the river's never led us astray. The path winds through low meadows. The grass is silvered with frost, the air sharp and clean. You pass an old shrine by the river, its stones worn smooth by generations of pilgrims. The small altar is piled with offerings, bundles of winter berries. A small woodland stag, a single feather gleaming white in the pale sun. You pause, your hand brushing the cool stone, a prayer. Will asks, his voice slow. Maybe, you say, or just a moment to remember that even in the quietest places, there's still hope. The road takes you onward, the sky turning soft and blue as the sun climbs higher. The men walk in easy silence, their steps light on the frozen earth in the late afternoon. You find the village Will spoke of, a small cluster of low huts by the river, smoke rising from the chimneys in thin, lazy coals, Children chase each other by the water's edge. Their laughter bright and sweet in the cold air. The villagers greet you with wary eyes, their faces lined with the quiet entrance of those who live close to the land. But there's warmth there too, a welcome as soft and steady as the river's song. You trade the promise of news for a place by the fire, the smell of fish stew and fresh bread wrapping round you like a cloak. The men eat slow, their shoulders easing, the weight of the road softening in the gentle comfort of the meal. As night falls, an old woman sits by the hearth. Her voice a soft murmur as she tells a story of the river spirits of a fisherman who caught a silver trout that spoke in riddles and laughed like a child. Will grins, the firelight dancing in his eyes, sounds like the fox. He says, maybe it was. You say, the memory of your story soft in your heart. Or maybe the river's always been full of clever spirits. The old woman nods, her eyes bright. The river remembers everything. She says, every dream, every sorrow, it carries them all. You close your eyes for a moment, listening to the river's quiet song outside. The memory of the king's dream and the prince's laughter woven into its soft, endless flow. And in the dark, with the fire warm and the river's voice close, you let yourself believe that the world can still hold something kind. The morning comes soft and cold, the river wrapped in a low mist that drifts like a ghost through the bare trees. You wake to the smell of wood smoke and the gentle hush of water against the rocks. The prince's banner folded close to your chest. The village stirs round you, the quiet rhythm of daily life weaving through the dawn. Children chase each other along the frozen bank, their laughter bright in the thin air. Old women bend over baskets of fish, their hands sure and practiced. The men ready their nets and boats, the river a constant companion. Will stands beside you, his breath misting in the cold. Funny, isn't it? He says, how life keeps going, even after everything. You nod. The banner a silent weight in your arms. The world doesn't stop for kings. You say, it just keeps moving. He smiles, the lines of his face soft in the early light. Maybe that's a mercy, he says, or maybe it's the cruelest joke. Historians still debate whether the king's final campaign was driven by duty or by the slow madness that comes from watching the world slip away. Some claim he fought because he had no other choice. Others that he was chasing a ghost he could never catch. You think of the king's voice, the way it could rise like thunder and fall soft as rain. You think of the prince, his laughter bright as the river's song, his faith a quiet, stubborn thing that wouldn't die. The villagers offer you bread and smoked fish. The meal simple but warm. You eat slowly, the taste of it grounding you in the soft rhythm of the morning. The men talk in low voices, the quiet comfort of familiar routine. You leave the village with the sun rising behind you. The road a thin line of promise in the cold light. The prince's banner is a bright ghost in your pack. The memory of his laughter a quiet echo in your heart. The path winds through low hills. The river a constant murmur to your right. The sky is a pale. In this blue, the cold air sharp in your lungs. You walk steady and sure, the men moving in easy silence round you. By midday, you come to a small bridge of weathered stone, the river slipping soft and cold beneath it. A single figure stands at the center, his cloak pulled tight against the wind. He raises a hand in greeting as you approach, his smile wide and bright. Travelers, he says, or perhaps wanderers. You smile back, the weight of the road easing for a moment, a bit of both. You say, the river's been kind to us so far. He laughs, the sound light as the breeze. The river's kind to no one, he says, but it doesn't judge either. You pause beside him, the water bright and cold beneath the bridge. Do you watch the river? You ask. Every day, he says. It remembers everything, every life, every dream. Some say it carries the souls of the dead to the sea, where they find rest. You watch the water slip past, the light catching on the ripples like quicksilver. "And what do you think?" You ask softly. He smiles, his eyes distant. "I think the river doesn't care," he says. "It just keeps moving, and maybe that's enough." You thank him and move on. The men quiet behind you. The weight of the words settling in your chest like a gentle ache. The road takes you onward, the sun warm on your face, the cold a soft bite in the air. You find a small shrine at the top of a low hill, the stones worn smooth by years of wind and rain. You pause, your hand brushing the cold surface, a prayer. Will asks, his voice quiet. "Or a promise," you say softly, "that we'll carry them with us, the king, the prince, all the dreams they left behind." He nods, his eyes bright. "That's enough," he says. "That's all anyone can ask." The afternoon stretches long and slow, the road a quiet, endless thing beneath your feet. The men walk steady beside you, their steps sure and measured, the river's song a soft echo in the air. You find a place to camp as the sun begins to set, the sky painted in gold and rose. The fire crackles low, the warmth of it a small comfort in the gathering dusk. Will sits beside you, his hands wrapped round a cup of warm ale. "Do you ever wonder," he says softly, "what it would have been like if the king had lived, if the prince had taken the throne?" You watch the fire dance, the memories of the battle soft and sharp in your mind. "I think the world would still have been hard," you say, "but there would have been laughter and hope, and maybe that's enough." He nods, his eyes reflecting the firelight. "Hope's a dangerous thing," he says, "but it's the only thing that keeps us moving." The night deepens round you, the river a dark, quiet song in the distance. You close your eyes, the memory of the king's voice soft in your ears. "The world is broken," he whispers, "but you are not," and in the quiet, with the fire warm and the stars bright above, you let yourself believe it's true. The next morning, you wake to a sky the color of tarnished silver and the river's gentle breath curling round the rocks. The men stir slowly, their movements soft and careful, as if the weight of the past night's stories still hangs heavy on their shoulders. You rise with them, your breath a soft ghost in the cold air. The prince's banner wrapped tight round your shoulders like a promise. The river glimmers pale and quiet beside you, its song a soft hum in the morning light. You pack your things slowly, the quiet hush of dawn a comfort. Will watches you with tired eyes, his hands steady as he ties his bedroll. "Long day ahead," he says, his voice slow and warm. "Best to keep moving," you nod. The weight of the road a familiar ache in your bones. "The river won't wait," you say with a small smile. He grins back, the lines of his face easing. It never does. The road follows the river's slow curve, the bare trees crowding close on either side. The wind whispers through the branches, the sky low and heavy above. The men walk in easy silence, their steps sure and measured. You pass an old milestone, the numbers worn smooth by time. Someone has left a small offering at its base, a sprig of winterberry, a scrap of ribbon the color of moonlight. Historians still debate whether these quiet shrines, these small, have forgotten gestures held any true power. Some say they were nothing but superstition, others that they held the memory of hope itself. You like to believe it's both, a quiet prayer, the promise that even in the hardest places, kindness can still take root. At midday, the road narrows, the river's banks rising steep and close. You come to a place where the water rushes quick and bright over a bed of dark stones, the sound of it a bright, shard music. You pause to drink, the cold bite of the water waking you like a slap. Will laughs softly as he watches you, his eyes bright. "Alive yet?" he asks, his voice teasing. "Barely," you say, wiping the water from your mouth. But it's a start. The men take their turn at the river, the cold water a brief comfort in the slow, steady rhythm of the day. You move on, the path winding close to the river's edge, the cold seeping deep into your bones. The prince's banner is a quiet weight in your pack, The memory of his laughter a warm echo in the hush of the world as the sun begins to sink behind the hills. You find a place to stop, a small hollow beneath an old oak. The ground soft with fallen leaves. The fire crackles low, the light of it bright against the growing dark. Will sits close, his cloak pulled tight against the chill. Tell me a story, he says softly, one that doesn't end in sorrow. You smile, the flicker of the flames painting his face in gold and shadow. All right, you say, once there was a girl who lived by the river. She was clever and kind, and she could speak to the fish that danced beneath the water. He raises an eyebrow, the corner of his mouth turning up. Fish that talked. You nod. They whispered secrets and sang songs of the sea, and every night the girl would listen, and in her dreams she would swim with them to the ocean's edge. Will chuckles, the sound soft and warm. And did she ever find the sea? Historians still debate whether the girl ever reached the shore, you say. Your voice soft. Some say she found it and lived forever by its endless waves. Others that she woke one morning and found the river gone, and all the fish with it. He nods slowly. I like the first ending better. So do I. You say, the memory of the river's song soft in your heart. The night settles round you, the cold air sharp and still. You watch the stars blink into being above, the quiet light of them a comfort. You dream of the king that night, his face quiet and sure in the soft glow of the firelight. He speaks of kingdoms lost and roads that never end. His voice low and certain, you carry it with you. He says, all of it the hope and the sorrow, and that's enough. You wake with the memory of his voice still warm in your chest. The fire a pale glow in the early light. The river waits for you, its song a soft promise in the dawn. You shoulder your pack and walk on, the road a quiet thread in the pale morning. The men walk steady beside you, their laughter soft and easy as the river's breath. The prince's banner glows pale in the early light, is small, bright promise in the endless hush. You walk on, the river your only witness. The memories of the king and the prince a quiet echo in the steady rhythm of your steps. And as the sun rises gold and soft over the frozen world, you let yourself believe for just a moment that even the coldest road can lead you home. The road stretches ahead, quiet and cold under the heavy gray sky. You've been walking for hours. The river a constant murmur to your right. The men's footsteps a soft counterpoint to its song. The prince's banner is a silent weight in your pack, a memory of brighter days and softer nights. The wind picks up as the afternoon deepens, carrying with it the sharp, clean scent of snow. The bare trees lean together in quiet conversation, their branches rattling like old bones. You pull your cloak tighter, the cold a thin blade against your skin. Will walks beside you, his shoulders hunched against the wind. Winter's got a long memory, he says, his voice half lost in the hush of the world. It doesn't forget the blood in the snow. You nod, the echo of old battles string in your chest. All the laughter, you say softly, the way it sounded, even when the world was breaking. Historians still debate whether the final charge that winter was born of courage or of sheer, blind desperation. Some claim the king knew he was doomed and rode anyway. Alas, bright blaze before the dark. Others argue it was a calculated gamble, a chance to turn the tide before the river claimed everything. You walk in silence, the men's breath white in the cold air. Their eyes bright and steady, the river keeps moving beside you. Its song low and patient, a quiet thread in the pale afternoon dark by dusk. The snow begins to fall in earnest soft, fat flakes that whisper against your skin. The world grows quiet and close, the river's voice muffled beneath the hush of winter's breath. You find shelter in an old watchtower by the river's bend, its stones cold and damp, the air thick with the memory of long-ago fires. The men set to work, their movements sure and practiced wood for the hearth, blankets for the floor, a pot of water warming over the coals. Will sits close to the fire, his face soft in the flickering light. "Tell me," he says, his voice low, "do you think the king found peace in the end?" You watch the flames dance, the memories of that final battle sharp and bright in your mind. "I think he found something," you say slowly. "Maybe not peace, but something close." Will nods, his eyes dark and distant. "And the prince?" You close your eyes, the echo of the prince's laughter soft in your chest. "He found a kind of freedom," you say, even if it was just for a moment. The wind howls outside, the snow piling in soft drifts against the old stones. You pull the prince's banner from your pack, the fabric cool and smooth beneath your fingers. The men watch you as you hold it close. The bright colors are small, defiant spark in the grey hush of the world. You hang it above the hearth, the firelight catching on the warm threads, turning them to gold. "Remind us who we are," Will says softly. You nod. The weight of the banner a quiet promise, and who we can still be. The night is long and cold, the snow whispering soft against the tower walls. You dream of the king's last stand, his sword bright in the pale light, his voice a quiet command in the roar of the battle. You see the prince at his side, his laughter bright and fierce, his eyes wide with the wild, bright joy of the charge. You see the river, wide and endless, waiting to claim them both. And you wake with the memory of it sharp in your chest, the fire a low glow in the cold dark. You rise before dawn, the snow soft, silent blanket over the world. The men move slow and careful, their breath white in the dim light. You break camp with quiet hands, the banner a bright ghost in the pale dawn. The road is slow going, the snow deep and heavy, the river a dark, quiet thread beside you. The men walk steady, their voices low and warm in the hush of the morning dot at midday. You find a small shrine carved into the riverbank, its stones worn smooth by years of wind and water. Someone has left a single candle there, its flame bright and sure against the cold. You pause, the memory of the king's voice soft in your ears. "The world is broken," he said, "but we are not." You light a second candle, your breath a soft prayer in the cold air. The flame flickers, steady and small, a bright promise against the winter's hush dot. Will stands beside you, his eyes bright. "For them," he asks, "for all of us." You say softly. The road winds on, the river a quiet wetness to your slow, steady march. The snow falls gentle and endless, the world wrapped in the soft hush of winter's breath. You walk with the prince's laughter in your chest and the king's quiet courage in your bones. The men walk beside you, their steps sure and measured, their voices soft and warm in the cold. And as the sun sinks low behind the hills, painting the snow in soft gold and rose, you let yourself believe for just a moment that even the coldest road can lead you home. You wake to a pale dawn, the snow piled high against the watchtower walls. The world is still and soft, the river a dark ribbon cutting through the endless white. The men move slow and careful, their breath ghosting in the cold air. You pack your things in silence, the prince's banner a bright flicker in the hush of the morning dot. Will is the last to shoulder his pack, his face set and quiet. "Another day," he says, his voice low and warm. "Another mile." You nod, the weight of the road a steady ache in your bones. "We'll see it through," you say, your voice a soft promise. The path follows the river's slow curve, the snow deep and heavy beneath your boots. The wind bites at your cheeks, the cold is sharp, clean taste on your tongue. The men walk in single file, their heads down, their breath a steady rhythm in the cold. The prince's banner flutters in the pale light, a bright thread in the endless white dot by midday. The sky grows heavy with clouds, the snow falling thick and soft. You find a place to rest, a small hollow beneath the twisted arms of an old willow, its branches heavy with snow. The men build a small fire, the smoke curling pale and thin into the grey sky. You sit close to the flames, the heat a brief comfort against the cold. Will watches you, his eyes bright with the reflection of the firelight. Tell me, he says softly, what did the king see in the river that final morning? You close your eyes, the memory of that cold dawn sharp and clear in your mind. He saw the end, you say softly, and something beyond it. Historians still debate whether the king's final charge was driven by hope or by the knowledge that there was no turning back. Some say he saw a path to victory, others that he saw only the river and the endless hush of the snow. You think he saw both. The fire crackles low, the smoke a soft breath in the cold air. Will leans back, his voice quiet. Do you think he was afraid? You smile, the memory of the king's voice warm in your chest. I think he was brave. You say, even when the world was breaking. The men rest in the hush of the winter afternoon, their laughter soft and low. You watch the snow fall gentle and slow, the river a dark whisper beneath the white. When you move on, the world is a blur of white and grey. The river's song a quiet thread in the hush. The men walk steady, their steps sure and careful. The prince's banner a bright flicker in the cold. The road winds through the low hills, the snow deep and heavy. The river's breath cold against your skin. You walk with the weight of the king's final charge in your chest. The memory of the prince's laughter soft in your hard dot at dusk. You come to a place where the river bends sharp and fast. The water rushing quick and cold over the dark stones. The men pause, their faces quiet in the pale light. Will kneels by the water, his hand cupped in the swift current. This river, he says softly, it's seen everything, you nod. The memory of the river's endless song a quiet ache in your bones. It remembers, you say, even when we forget. You may camp by the river's edge, the fire is small. Bright promise in the deepening dark. The men's laughter is soft and warm, a fragile thread in the cold. You sit close to the flames, the prince's banner a bright shadow in the night. You tell them stories of the king's last stand, the fierce, bright joy of the charge, the quiet hush of the river's final promise. The night is long and cold, the stars pale and distant above. You dream of the king's voice, the quiet strength of it a soft echo in the hush of the snow dot in your dream. The river is wide and endless, its breath cold and sweet against your skin. You see the prince at its edge, his laughter bright and fierce in the quiet dark. Home, he says softly, his voice a bright echo in the endless hush. We're almost there. You wake with the memory of his voice warm in your chest. The fire a soft glow in the cold dawn. The river waits for you, its song a quiet promise in the pale light. You shoulder your pack and walk on, the road a steady thread beneath your feet. The men walk beside you, their laughter a soft counterpoint to the river's endless song. The prince's banner flutters bright in the morning light, is small, defiant promise in the quiet world dot, and as the sun rises slow and soft over the endless snow, you let yourself believe for just a moment that even the coldest road can still carry you home. You wake to a quiet world, the snow is soft, and broken hush that blankets the ground and smooths the river's breath. The men move slowly, their laughter muted by the cold, their eyes bright with the soft glow of the dawn. The prince's banner is a bright flicker in the pale light, a memory of warmth and promise that lingers in the hush of the morning. You shoulder your pack and set out, the river a constant companion at your side. The road is narrow and winding, the snow deep and heavy beneath your feet. The men walk steady and sure, their breath a soft rhythm in the cold air. Will moves beside you, his face quiet and thoughtful. You ever think about how the king might have felt that last morning? He asks softly, his voice a low hum in the cold. Standing there at the river's edge, knowing it would all end, you smile faintly, the memory of the king's quiet courage warming in your chest. I think he felt the weight of every step he took. You say, but he kept moving anyway. Historians still debate whether the king's final stand was an act of desperate defiance or a measured gamble, the last bright spark of hope before the darkness. Some say he knew the river would claim him. Others that he believed right up to the end that he could hold it back. You like to believe it was both. A quiet, stubborn hope, and the knowledge that even the coldest river can't drown a heart that still beats. The day moves slow and steady, the snow falling soft and thick round you. The river's breath is a cold whisper at your side, a memory of battles lost and won by midday. You find a place to rest, a small clearing where the river bends sharp and bright. The snow piled high on the roots of a great oak. The men build a fire. Their laughter soft and warm in the pale hush of the world. Will sits close, his cloak pulled tight round his shoulders. Tell me a story, he says softly, his voice a quiet thread in the cold. Something that makes this feel less like the end. You smile. The memory of old tales bright in your mind. All right? You say softly, once, in the time before the rivers ran cold, there was a king who loved the stars. He would sit by the river's edge every night and tell them his secrets. We'll laugh softly. The sound a warm flicker in the cold. Did the stars answer? They did. You say, your voice a soft murmur. They told him that even in the darkest night, there is always a spark of light waiting to be found. The men listen, their faces soft and bright in the glow of the fire. The river's song is a low, steady hush, the snow falling gentle and endless round you. When you move on, the day is deep and quiet, the river a cold, bright thread at your side. The path winds through the low hills, the snow heavy and soft beneath your feet. You come to a place where the river narrows, the water rushing quick and bright between the stones. The men pause, their eyes bright in the pale light. Will kneels at the river's edge, his hand cupped in the cold water. It's alive, he says softly, his breath a soft ghost in the cold. Like it remembers everything that's been lost, you nod. The river's song a quiet ache in your bones. It does. You say, every battle, every promise, every broken dream. The sun sinks low behind the hills, painting the snow in soft gold and rose. You make camp in the shelter of an old stone wall, the fire a small, warm promise in the growing dark. Will sits close, his eyes bright in the firelight. Do you think the king's story ends here? He asks softly. You shake your head, the memory of the king's quiet strength warm in your chest. I think it ends when we stop telling it. You say, and that's not tonight. The men's laughter is soft and warm. The fire a bright glow against the cold. The prince's banner flutters in the pale light. A bright, defiant spark in the hush of the night. You dream of the king that night. His voice a quiet echo in the dark. The river can't wash it all away. He says softly, not if you keep moving. You wake with the memory of his voice a soft warmth in your chest. The fire a low glow in the pale dawn. The river waits for you, its breath cold and sweet against your skin. You shoulder your pack and walk on, the men's footsteps a steady rhythm beside you. The prince's banner glows bright in the morning light, a promise that even the coldest road can still carry you home. And as the sun rises slow and soft over the snow-covered world, you let yourself believe for just a moment that the king's story will never truly end. You walk through the morning hush, the snow still thick and quiet round you. The river a soft murmur in the cold air. The men walk beside you, their laughter a low warmth in the quiet dawn. The prince's banner flickers bright in the pale light. His small, defined promise that lingers in your chest. The road curves close to the river, the water running swift and dark beneath the ice. The men move carefully, their steps sure and steady. Their voices low and warm. Dot will walk at your side, his eyes bright and distant, ever wonder. He says softly, if the king knew how it would all end. You smile feebly. The memory of the king's quiet crit a soft ache in your chest. I think he knew, you say, but he kept moving anyway. Historians still debate whether the king's final stand was an act of desperation or of quiet defiance. Some say he saw no choice but to ride into the river's cold breath. Others claim he believed right to the end that he could hold back the tide. You like to think it was both. The river winds on beside you. Its song a quiet counterpoint to the crunch of snow beneath your boots. The sun climbs slow and soft. The light a pale shimmer on the frozen water dot by midday. The wind picks up, sharp and bright against your skin. The men pull their cloaks tighter, their laughter turning to quiet murmurs as the cold seeps deep. You pause at a small rise, the river bending slow and wide below. The snow is deep here, the trees black and sharp against the white. Will stands beside you, his breath a white cloud in the cold. It feels like the end of the world. He says softly, you nod. The hush of the snow a soft echo in your bones. But we're still here, you say, and that counts for something. The men rest a moment, their faces quiet in the cold light. You watch the river, its breath a dark promise beneath the ice. When you move on, the wind howls through the trees, the snow drifting high against your boots. The path narrows, the river crowding close. Its voice a low murmur in the hush that you come to a place where the water runs swift and black. The ice cracked and broken in jagged shards. The men pause, their breath white in the cold air. Will kneels by the water's edge, his hand cupped in the cold current. It's never still, he says softly, even when the world feels frozen. You nod, the river's song a quiet echo in your chest. It remembers, you say, even what we've tried to forget. The sun sinks low behind the hills, painting the snow in soft gold and rose. You make camp in the shelter of a small copse. The fire is soft, bright glow in the growing dark. The men's laughter is low and warm. The prince's banner a bright flicker in the quiet night. Will sits close to the fire, his eyes bright in the glow. Tell me again, he says softly, about the king's last words. You close your eyes, the memory of that cold dawn bright and sharp in your mind. He said, hold the line, you say softly, and he meant it with every breath he had left. Will nods, his face quiet and thoughtful, and the prince. You smile faintly. The memory of the prince's bright laughter, a soft warmth in your chest. He said, let's make it count, and he did. The wind howls outside, the snow drifting high against the small shelter. The fire crackles low and warm, the men's voices soft and steady. You dream of the king's voice that night, a quiet promise in the hush of the dark. The river can't wash it all away. He says softly, not if we keep telling the story. You wake to the pale glow of dawn, the fire low, warm breath in the cold. The men move slow and careful, their laughter a soft thread in the hush of the morning. The prince's banner flutters bright in the pale light, a quiet promise that even the coldest road can still carry you home. You shoulder your pack and set out, the river a quiet witness at your side. The men walk steady, their breath white in the cold, their voices soft and warm. And as the sun climbs slow and bright over the snow-covered hills, you let yourself believe for just a moment that the king's story is still being written with every step you take. You walk beneath a pale sky, the river winding black and bright at your side. The snow soft, cold hush beneath your boots. The men move in silence, their breath a steady rhythm in the cold air. The prince's banner a small, fierce flicker in the quiet morning. The sun is a distant glow, a pale promise of warmth that never quite reaches the ground. You pull your cloak tighter, the cold a sharp ache in your bones. Will walks beside you, his eyes bright and watchful. Do you think the king ever doubted? He asks softly, his voice a low hum in the cold. You smile faintly. The memory of the king's quiet resolve a warm echo in your chest. I think he doubted everything, you say, but he never let it stop him. Historians still debate whether the king's final words were meant to inspire or to calm his own fear. Some say they were a battle cry, others that they were a prayer whispered into the cold morning. You like to believe they were both. The road winds close to the river, The water low, steady murmur in the hush of the snow. The men walk carefully, their steps sure and quiet, their voices low and warm dot by midday. The river narrows, the current swift and dark beneath the ice. You find a place to rest. A small hollow beneath an ancient oak, its twisted limbs heavy with snow. The men gather close, the fire smooth. Bright promise in the cold. Will sits beside you, his face quiet in the glow. Tell me, he says softly, what did the king see that last morning? You close your eyes, the memory of that cold dawn bright and sharp in your mind. He saw the end. You say softly, and he saw a way forward. Will nods, his breath a soft ghost in the cold air. That's what keeps us going. He says, the hope that there's always a way forward. You nod, the river's song a quiet ache in your chest. Even when the road is cold, you say softly. Even when the world feels like it's breaking, the men's laughter is a soft warmth in the cold. The prince's banner a bright promise in the pale light. The fire crackles low and steady, the snow drifting soft and slow round you. When you move on, the river bends wide and dark beneath the trees. The water a bright, cold thread in the hush. The men walk steady, their breath a soft rhythm in the quiet world. You come to a place where the river splits, a small island of ice and stone rising in the dark water. The men pause, their eyes bright in the pale light. Will steps forward, his voice slow and soft. It feels like the heart of everything. He says, like this is where the story ends. You smile faintly. The memory of the king's quiet laughter, a soft warmth in your chest. Maybe, you say, or maybe it's where it begins again. The men made camp on the island. The fire bright, warm glow in the cold. The prince's banner flutters bright and defiant in the night. A small spark of hope against the darkness. You sit close to the fire. The river's breath a cold whisper at your back. Will leans close. His voice a soft murmur. Tell me a story. He says, one we can carry with us. You smile. The memory of old tales bright in your mind. All right, you say softly. Once, in the time before the rivers ran cold, there was a kingdom of snow and stone, and a king who would not bow to the darkness. We laugh softly. The sound a warm thread in the cold. Did he win? He did, you say, because even the longest night has to end. The men listen, their faces soft and bright in the glow of the fire. The river's song is a low, steady hush, the snow falling gentle and endless round you. You dream of the king's voice that night, a quiet echo in the dark. The river can't wash it all away. He says softly, not if you keep moving. You wake with the memory of his voice, a soft warmth in your chest. The fire a low glow in the cold dawn. The river waits for you, its breath cold and sweet against your skin. You shoulder your pack and set out. The men's footsteps, a steady rhythm beside you. The prince's banner flutters bright in the morning light. A promise that even the coldest road can still carry you home. And as the sun climbs slow and soft over the snow-covered world, you let yourself believe for just a moment that the king's story is still being written with every step you take. You walk into the pale light of dawn, the river a quiet song at your side. The snow deep and soft beneath your boots, the men move slow and steady. Their laughter low and warm in the cold air. The prince's banner is a bright promise in the quiet morning. A flicker of hope that lights the path ahead. The road winds close to the river, the water running swift and dark beneath the ice. The men walk carefully, their breath a white ghost in the cold. Their voices a soft, steady hum. Will walks beside you, his eyes bright and thoughtful. Ever wonder what the king would say if he were here now? He asks softly. You smile faintly. The memory of the king's quiet courage a warm ache in your chest. I think he'd tell us to keep moving. You say, to hold the line, no matter how cold it gets. Historians still debate whether the king's final march was an act of blind faith or quiet defiance. Some say he walked into the river knowing he wouldn't return. Others claim he believed right up to the end that he could find a way through. You like to think it was both. The day moves slow and steady, the snow drifting high against the riverbank. The world a quiet hush of white and grey. The men walk in silence, their eyes bright in the cold like dawn by midday. You find a small grove of pines, their branches heavy with snow. The men rest there, their laughter low and warm, the fire a soft glow against the cold. Will sits close to the fire, his face quiet and thoughtful. Tell me a story, he says softly, something that makes this feel less like the end. You smile, the memory of old tales bright in your mind. All right, you say, once, in the time before the rivers ran cold, there was a prince who dreamed of stars. He walked the river's edge every night, his eyes bright with hope. We'll laugh softly, the sound a warm flicker in the cold. Did he find them? He did. You say, because even the darkest river can reflect the light of the stars. The men's laughter is soft and warm, the fire is small, bright promise in the hush of the world. When you move on, the river winds close and dark, the water low, steady murmur in the hush. The men walk slow and steady, their breath white in the cold air. You come to a place where the river bends sharp and bright, the ice cracked and broken beneath the current. The men pause, their eyes bright in the pale light. Will kneels at the water's edge, his hand cupped in the cold water. It's alive, he says softly, like it remembers everything we've tried to forget. You nod, the river's song a quiet ache in your chest. It does, you say softly. Every battle, every promise, every hope we've carried. The sun sinks low behind the hills, painting the snow in soft gold and rose. You make camp in the shelter of a small hollow, the fire a bright glow in the cold. The prince's banner flutters bright in the night, a quiet promise that even the coldest road can still carry you home. You dream of the king's voice that night, a soft echo in the dark. The river can't wash it all away. He says softly, not if you keep telling the story. You wait to the pale light of dawn, the fire low, warm breath in the cold. The men move slow and careful, their laughter a soft thread in the hush of the morning. The river waits for you, its breath cold and sweet against your skin. You shoulder your pack and walk on, the men's footsteps a steady rhythm beside you. And as the sun climbs slow and bright over the snow-covered hills, you let yourself believe for just a moment that the king's story is still alive, still flowing like the river, still waiting to be told. You wake before the dawn, the cold a soft ache in your bones, the river a low murmur in the dark. The fire is a faint glow, the men still wrapped in the quiet warmth of sleep. You step into the hush, the snow deep and soft beneath your boots. The world a quiet breath of white and grey dot will stands by the river, his eyes bright in the pale light. Can you hear it? He asks softly, his voice low and warm. Don't you close your eyes, the river's song a quiet echo in your chest. It remembers, you say, everything we've lost, everything we've left behind. Historians still debate whether the river was seen as a curse or a promise in the final days. Some say it was the last line of defense. Others claim it was the only way forward. You like to think it was both. The men wake slow and careful, their laughter low and warm in the cold. The prince's banner flickers bright in the early light, a small, defiant promise that lingers in the quiet world. You walk beside the river, the water running swift and dark beneath the ice, the sun a pale glow in the sky. The men move steady, their breath a soft rhythm in the hush that walks close, his eyes bright and thoughtful. Do you ever think about what comes after? He asks softly, after the last battle, after the last breath. You smile faintly, the memory of the king's quiet strength a warm ache in your chest. I think about it all the time. You say, But I don't know the answer. Will nods. The river's breath a cold whisper against his skin. Maybe that's all right. He says, maybe not knowing is what keeps us moving. The day is long and slow, the snow deep and soft, the river a dark thread in the white. The men walk in silence, their laughter a low hum in the cold dot by midday. You find a place where the river splits, the water swirling dark and fast round a small island of ice and stone. The men pause there, their breath white in the cold air. Dot will kneels at the water's edge, his hand cupped in the cold current. It's never still, he says softly, not even when everything else is frozen. You smile, the memory of the king's laughter a quiet warmth in your chest. Because it remembers, you say softly, just like we do. The men's laughter is soft and warm, the fire a bright glow in the growing dark. The prince's banner flutters bright in the night, a small promise in the hush. You sit close to the fire, the river's breath a cold hush at your back. Will leans close, his voice a soft murmur. Tell me again, he says, about the king's last words. You close your eyes. The memory of that cold dawn bright and sharp. He said, hold the line. You say softly, and he meant it with every breath he had left. Will nods, his face quiet in the glow, and the prince. You smile faintly, the memory of the prince's bright laughter a soft warmth in your chest. He said, let's make it count, and he did. The wind howls outside, the snow drifting high against the shelter. The fire crackles low and warm, the men's voices soft and steady. You dream of the king's voice that night, a quiet promise in the hush of the dark. The river can't wash it all away, he says softly, not if you keep telling the story. You wake to the pale glow of dawn, the fire low, warm breath in the cold. The men move slow and steady, their laughter a soft thread in the quiet morning. The river waits for you, its breath cold and sweet against your skin. You shoulder your pack and set out, the men's footsteps a steady rhythm beside you. And as the sun climbs slow and soft over the snow-covered hills, you let yourself believe for just a moment that the king's story is still alive, still waiting to be carried in every breath you take. The snow falls heavy in the morning light, a soft hush that blankets the world in white. The river is a dark, winding thread in the pale dawn. The men's footsteps a quiet echo in the hush. You walk slow, the cold a soft ache in your bones, the memory of the king's voice a warm promise in your chest. The prince's banner flutters bright and sure, a small spark of hope that lights the road ahead. The men walk close, their laughter low and warm, their breath a white ghost in the cold air. Will walks beside you, his eyes bright in the pale light. It feels like we've come full circle, he says softly. You smile faintly, the river's song a quiet ache in your chest. Maybe we have, you say, but there's always another circle to begin. Historians still debate whether the final battle was a choice or a destiny written in the river's flow. Some say it was the king's last stand. Others believe it was the prince's first step. You like to think it was both. The day is long and slow, the snow deep and soft beneath your boots. The river winds close, the water swift and dark beneath the ice. A quiet promise in the hush struck by midday. You find a place where the river bends wide and slow, the ice thick and white beneath the sun. The men pause there, their breath is soft, steady rhythm in the cold. Dot will stands at the water's edge, his eyes bright and thoughtful. Do you think they ever really left? He asks softly. You smile faintly, the memory of the king's quiet laughter a warm echo in your chest. I think they're still here, you say softly. In every step we take, the men make camp on the riverbank. The fire is small, bright promise in the cold. The prince's banner flickers bright in the night, a quiet promise that even the coldest road can still carry you home. You sit close to the fire, the river's breath a low, steady hush in the dark. Will leans close, his voice a soft murmur. Tell me, He says, "What comes next?" You close your eyes. The memory of old tales brighten your mind. We keep moving. You say softly, "We keep telling the story." The men's laughter is soft and warm. The fire a bright glow in the cold. The snow drifts down, a soft, endless whisper that blurs the edges of the world. You dream of the king's voice that night, a quiet echo in the hush. The river can't wash it all away. He says softly, "Not if you remember." You wake to the pale light of dawn. The fire a low glow in the quiet. The men move slow and steady. Their laughter a soft hum in the cold morning. The river waits for you. Its breath cold and sweet against your skin. You shoulder your pack and set out. The men's footsteps, a steady rhythm beside you. The prince's banner flutters bright and sure in the morning light. He promised that even the coldest night can give way to dawn. And as you walk, you let yourself believe for just a moment that the king's story is still alive, still flowing like the river, still waiting to be carried in every breath you take.